After Rudo completes his first job as a giver and Follow awakens to his own power, the cleaners head to the vibrant doll festival in pursuit of the White Crow. Their goal is to track down the creator of the chokers and uncover the secrets tied to them. Will they finally get the answers they seek, or will even deeper mysteries emerge? Let's find out. Let's return now to Tamsi as he entered the room of their boss. He let his hair down, and while showing it off, he said that he wanted to go on a trip, so he was filing for time off. 2 days later, the scene shifts to a town at night. Here, Semiyu entered a bar, and upon arriving inside, she noticed someone familiar sitting at the bar table, so she approached him. It turned out to be Injin, who was intently staring at his choker. Semiyu sat beside him and commented that he finally had a night out, but questioned why he was spending the whole time just staring at that choker. She also noticed that he had gotten the group photo they took recently along with the new cleaner members. Injin explained that Ryo didn't want to be in any of the pictures when Semiyu looked at it. Semiyu then replied that she already said she would be the one to take the photo, and afterward, she ordered the same drink Injin was having from the bartender. When the bartender handed her the drink, Semiyu asked how Follow was doing and whether he had already begun to be physically affected by Rudo's power. Injin replied that so far, they hadn't seen anything yet, emphasizing that they were still anticipating something to happen. If anything, he added, Follow was worried that it was creepy and weird to have named his vital instrument after his friend, but that was the only update so far. They did, however, manage to get an analysis of that power. Follow's vital instrument, named Alan, produces explosions that generate greater force the more stress builds up. It's classified as an offense-defense type, fully defensive until the right moment, at which point it releases an extreme attack. The sticking point, however, is that it can't deliver multiple attacks in succession. Once Follow uses that first blast, he has to rebuild stress all over again. Semiyu commented that the more special a power is, the more weaknesses it tends to have. She also added that she was concerned about the effects this might have on Follow's mental health. She said that since Injin, Zanka, and Ryo all have plain vital instruments, they can fight without suffering from any recoil, which seemed to slightly hurt Injin's pride when she referred to his power as plain. After a moment of thinking, Injin recalled something about Amo's vital instrument and opened up that topic. He explained that she uses her powers without transforming them into weapon mode. Semiyu responded that their boss saw potential in her. She explained that once Amo gains full control and understanding of how to use her powers, they might finally witness a true transformation. This worried Injin, who said he really should pray that Amo never ends up turning to the dark side. Semiyu added that maybe she was subconsciously suppressing her powers, since she came from an environment where she likely had to lock up her real feelings just to survive. Injin repeated the idea that a vital instrument reflects its user and pointed out that this was the reason the user's name is engraved on it. And that's also why, when there's no name on the instrument, it means the user is holding themselves back. He then turned to Semiyu and asked if that was correct. Afterward, Injin also mentioned that he heard Semiyu would be going on vacation for a while and asked if that was an order from their boss. That caught Semiyu's attention, and she asked where is that coming from. She asked what was wrong with taking a break, and Injin responded that of course there was nothing wrong with that, if she was actually taking a break. However, he noted that every time Semiyu takes a day off, it always starts with her wanting to get completely drunk that day. Hearing that, Semiyu commented that she should have known he'd eventually figure that out. Because of that, Injin deduced that Semiyu was planning to write her name into her own vital instrument, so she could look into the future. Semiyu took a sip from her drink and told Injin to relax, because she had already arranged for a substitute receptionist, and added that their boss could look into people like her, so things would be fine even without her. But this news didn't sit well with Injin. Irritated, he replied that wasn't the problem. He pointed out that the reason Semiyu wasn't using her full powers was because of the risk. He expressed concern about what kind of recoil there might be if she removed her limiters and used that to look into the future. As painful as it was to say, Injin pointed out that there might be a chance Semiyu might never be able to see again. Semiyu questioned his idea about her never being able to see again, pointing out that he was overreacting, and explained that if she didn't look into the future for too long, there wouldn't be a problem. She then shared with Oniii-Chan what seemed to be the reason she was doing all of this. Their boss had seen something. While the scene shifted to Corvus waiting in his room for someone to enter, his face full of anticipation, Semiu added that before long, something was going to happen. In the next scene, August was hyped and excitedly told Rudo that the Doll Fest was finally happening tomorrow. He began handing out the costumes he made specifically for them. Rudo was surprised when August gave a costume to Amo as well, so he asked if she was coming along. Amo happily replied that Corvus had told her she could join and that she had never been this excited in her life. Apparently, according to Rio, Gris, Tom, and Follow wouldn't be coming with them. They were going to help Follow with his training alongside his vital instrument instead. Rio asked Zanka if he had already sparred with Follow, to which he answered that he'd do it once they got back, all while thinking to himself that being gone for just 2 seconds already made him miss all the action. After that, August yelled at the top of his lungs that the day had finally come. He had pulled countless all-nighters just to finish all of their costumes, so he told them to make sure they appreciated every detail. Rio thanked him, while Rudo kept repeating in his mind that his job was to find the white crow that Kuro told him about, the Choker Maker, the Watchman series. Zanka then asked who else was coming with them to the Doll Fest. August replied that Oniii-Chan was going, Aishia too, and even folks from the South Branch, but they'd be joining them later. He also pointed at a guy and said that the one who felt so out of place he couldn't even join the conversation was coming too. When they turned to look at who August was pointing at, they saw Fu squeezed awkwardly beside a vending machine, which surprised Rudo. Fu let out a nervous laugh and explained that he was currently working with the cleaners on a trial basis, which left Rio, Rudo, and Zanka speechless, while August shouted that he could feel that something was about to go down. In the next scene, the day of the Doll Festival had finally arrived, and we shift over to the town. At a house, a mysterious individual who looked like an enigmatic showwoman was seen coming out from its doorstep. She saw a crow eating some spilled waste from a bucket, and she expressed concern, commenting how terrible that bird's manners were. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Maimo had begun broadcasting to his viewers, addressing them as beautiful, ordinary people. He welcomed them to their grand event. The day they had all been waiting for had finally arrived. It was shown that the city parking lot was completely full due to how popular the festival was. And as cars continued to arrive and park, Maimo continued speaking. He asked his viewers if they want to know why they're hearing his voice at the festival, and then answered that it was because their favorite reporter was the MC for this year. Then, Rudo's group stepped out of their car and readied themselves to go to the festival. Rio was surprised that Maimo was here as well, which made Rudo ask who she was referring to when she mentioned that name, while Oniii-Chan asked whether they had removed their chokers, and August hurried them along. He explained that once they left the parking lot, they'd arrived directly at the town's main area where the festival was being held. He ran off quickly, leaving them behind, prompting Aishia to shout after him to wait for them. Maimo then mentioned that a special surprise awaited all participants at the end of the festival, so everyone should look forward to the finale. They were greeted by a grand celebration as Maimo called out for the Doll Festival to begin. Rudo's eyes widened in awe, stunned at how massive everything was, and he couldn't help but shout how awesome it was. As he walked around, he looked in every direction, overwhelmed, and commented in disbelief that so this is the Doll Festival. Right after that, the location of the event was briefly shown. They were in the South Ward of Shumina City, also known as Andio, and there was a summit in the area being pointed out. Rudo and company were positioned at the base of it. As they walked, August told them that, of course, if they wanted to experience the real festival, they had to climb all the way to the summit. However, he added, there were tons of booths and displays to check out along the way, so even without trying, they were sure to have the best time of their lives. Another highlight, he added, was all the costumes, while Rudo was clearly entranced, gazing at the sea of people dressed in outfits. His mind returned to the information Kuro gave him, telling him to look for the white crow, who would lead him to someone that knew where to find the choker maker. As he remembered that, he found himself wondering where to even start. He was unsure whether the crow was an actual bird or a person dressed as one, so he mentally spoke to Kuro and admitted that he didn't have a single filthin' clue. August then grabbed their attention and told them that he and his little sister Aishia would be heading over to the official merch, while Aishia told them they probably wouldn't see each other again in the thick crowd. Rio asked Injin what they were going to do then, but he didn't respond immediately, as though lost in thought. She called his name again, and the second time, it worked and caught his attention. Rio giggled and kept trying to say a specific phrase that she said suited Injin, but cutely admitted she couldn't quite pull it off, which irritated Zanka. With a straight face, Rudo asked if she was trying to say the phrase physically present but psychologically absent, which caused Zanka to burst in frustration, making Rio laugh even more. While the three were having their bonding moment, Injin recalled the conversation he had with Semiyu before they left the bar. She told him not to worry and to just go to the doll festival. She said she couldn't leave the office anyway until she finished submitting her reports. She also pointed out that their boss would be at the event to watch the seeing, and that he was currently buried under a mountain of paperwork backlogs. So, she told him there was still time. He should just go to the doll festival, for Rudo. Injin had been thinking about it ever since she said those words. In that talk, Semiyu opened up that she's always wondered about something. She pointed out that Rudo was just some random stranger who appeared out of nowhere, and asked, if that was the case, why did he even care about him to begin with? We then returned to the present, where Injin was still deep in thought about it. Rudo noticed how serious he looked, and before long, made a decision. He suddenly called out to Zanka and Rio, catching their attention, and once they turned around, he used their mutual understanding of silent conversation to ask if he had told them there was a reason why they came to the festival. Zanka and Rio were momentarily caught off guard, but quickly answered him with the same level of seriousness. Zanka said he remembered, explaining that they were here to locate the choker maker and gather clues about how to ascend toward the sphere. Rio, on the other hand, asked if she was right that perhaps those involved were part of the Watchmen series, and she wondered when they began spying on them through the chokers. After that, Injin told them to listen up. He said they wanted to avoid any kind of fight that might disrupt the festival. If they could just figure out where the choker maker was, their mission would be instantly accomplished. And so, he added there right now, their job was to investigate the crowd and locate the White Crow. As they exchanged hand gestures and nonverbal cues with one another, Amo watched and wondered to herself if it was some kind of ritual. Not long after, Injin thanked them for the conversation, and Amo commented that the cleaners really were incredibly close with one another, while Fu on the other hand seems to be getting uneasy and restless. Amo suddenly remembered something and asked Fu if it was true that he was only working with the cleaners on a trial basis. She followed up by asking why it was even a trial to begin with, and why he hadn't just been made an official member. Fu grew even more anxious but eventually tried to answer, saying it was because no one had actually ordered him to join, which confused Amo even further. Fu explained that when he talked with Corvus, he was asked what brought him to the cleaners, and that he, sounding completely deranged, replied with a spirited "yes, sir," and said it was because he wanted to be bossed around. And from there, he somehow ended up on a trial basis. Even so, Amo still didn't fully get it, but just accepted it anyway. Fu added that even being at the festival wasn't his own idea. He had only come because someone told him to. Amo replied that it's amazing how the cleaners just let him join just like that, then explained that she herself had asked if she could join. She said she was doing it to make up for what she had done, and to help Rudo however she could now. That's why she told Corvus, while calling her uncle, that she wanted to become a cleaner. Then, she asked Fu if there was truly nothing he could do unless someone ordered him to. As Fu listened, he suddenly whispered to himself that he gets it. He said that Amo had never made a single decision for herself that turned out to be a huge mistake, while Amo simply stared at him, still confused. Afterward, Rudo and the group wandered around, and Rio saw a hilariously ridiculous mask that caught her eye. She got everyone's attention just to point out that the stalls here were selling such stupid-looking masks. Zanka scolded her, saying she was too easily distracted, but Rio didn't care and even pointed out that Zanka looked like one of those stupid masks, irritating him even more. Meanwhile, Rudo was scanning the area non-stop, hoping to catch sight of the White Crow, while Injin joined in the teasing. Calling Zanka Little Zanzan, he joked that it was his big brother who'd be buying the mask, causing Zanka to shout no way and demand they keep that mask far away from his face. Unfortunately, the cash register at the stall had already rung, and Injin playfully said it was too late. He already bought it. Zanka demanded he return it, but the seller cut in and said there's no returns. Rio encouraged him and explained that it wasn't every day they got to attend a festival, telling him not to be such a stick in the mud. Annoyed, Zanka said there were way more crucial things they needed to be looking for than some silly mask. But just as he was about to continue explaining himself, something passing by at their side caught his attention. His eyes widened as if he had just seen a ghost. The moment he caught the silhouette of the man wearing what looked like a conical hat, he instinctively snatched the mask from Rio's hands and immediately put it on, leaving both of them confused about why he'd do that, while Zanka nervously wondered to himself what that man was doing here. Meanwhile, we follow the man Zanka was referring to, who was accompanied by two other individuals. The man in the conical hat reported through a communication device that they had arrived in town. A female voice responded, ordering them to take advantage of the event to capture their target. She added that the signs all pointed to this being their true objective. That woman turned out to be Kyoka, and while the voice of a man in pain echoed where she was, she mentioned that their mark seemed to be plotting something at the doll festival itself. As Zanka secretly watched the man with the hat, clearly rattled, Kyoka told the man that she was counting on him to handle everything, even calling him little brother. The man replied, "As you wish," while Zanka, in his thoughts, referred to that man as Goka. In the next scene, Rudo and the others continued their search for their target, and here they spotted a float that resembled a Titan from Attack on Titan. It caught Rudo's attention and made him ask if that was the White Crow, to which Injin replied that it wasn't and said it was just a Titan costume, commending it as impressive. Next, Rudo pointed to another character that resembled Aryu from Blue Lock and asked about that one. So Injin replied that it was just a costume of someone with too much style, then asked what part of it even had bird elements. Rudo pointed at something else and asked about that too, and Injin guessed it was a holy sword that inspired people to say obnoxious things. Excalibur! Annoyed by the costumes, Rudo shouted that the stupid White Crow was nowhere to be seen, which made Rio laugh and comment that his search methods were starting to sound desperate, while Injin told him that if something only shows up when you're not looking for it, then maybe you shouldn't be trying to look for it at all. Also worth noting, Sunraku was here as well. Rio then asked what if the crow wasn't out here, but inside the event hall instead. Injin agreed that was possible, since after all, the main event of the Doll Fest was the Giver Show, which was being held inside. Amo then commented in surprise that they were actually looking for a White Crow this whole time, since she thought they were just looking for the other cleaners. Injin explained that the twins were participating in the show, and they had gone there together with Mildreda and the other cleaners from South Ward, but he doubted they'd be able to meet with them. Fu then turned to He and asked if he thought there was any real reason for him being there at all. After that, Injin told Amo that for now, he thought they should just head straight to the main hall, to which Amo suddenly lowered her voice ominously and seemed to get angry because Injin hadn't told her about the White Crow. That prompted Injin to ask her to please not lower her voice like that, as it was scaring him. Meanwhile, Zanka, still wearing his mask, was deeply pondering what in the world his older brother was doing here. While this was happening, the scene cut to somewhere in the West Ward, inside a small shed. A harsh interrogation light was switched on while two men pinned another individual to the ground, surrounded by Kyoka and her subordinates. Kyoka drew out a kunai, sending a wave of panic into the man, and pointed out that he was just a decoy who deliberately leaked false information to make them think he was the main target. She raised the kunai and added that the information he provided was about the possession of a terrorist device, exactly the kind of tip the Hell Guards would respond to. She suddenly grabbed the man's ear, making him scream in pain, and told him that he was nothing more than a sacrificial pawn. She asked if it didn't hurt, being constantly used, taken advantage of, and forced to bear the suffering all alone. She also told him she was sure he had heard of the agonies experienced in the Hell Guard's prison, which made him visibly tremble with fear. She doubted that he truly wanted to go there just for the sake of the person who had sent him. As she raised the severed ear, she seriously demanded that he tell them what was going to happen at the Doll Festival. They waited for the man's response, and despite the torture he was enduring, he still managed to smile and told them they were too late, because the device that would spin the world had already begun to turn. Everyone had already become dependent on it, and they couldn't survive without it anymore. He added that in the past, the world had lost its ruler. And now, as Rudo's eyes widened while staring at something, the man declared that the one he spoke of would become the world's new ruler. After that, we returned to Rudo's side, where he was already discussing the Hell Guards with Zanka and asked what they were. Zanka pointed out that the cleaners specialize in exterminating trash beasts, then said that the Hell Guards are the opposite. The Hell Guards, he explained, were an organization that hunted human beings. With a few exceptions, the Hell Guards were an assemblage of people who had no powers, but each of them was an expert in fighting other humans, and it didn't matter even if their opponent was a giver. If they perceived someone as a threat, they would immediately act, and Zanka noted that he didn't understand how the raiders were still roaming around freely with the Hell Guards out there. That got Rudo thinking, and he realized they seemed a lot like the apostles from the sphere. Zanka then warned him to make sure that he never got caught by them, which surprised and confused Rudo. Zanka explained that the Hell Guards were also investigating the antagonism between the sphere and the ground. So, as someone from the sphere, if he were caught by them, they would take him in, whether he deserved it or not. Rudo grew worried and pointed out that Zanka said the Hell Guards were here. So did that mean they were after him? Zanka replied that he didn't know, but said his brother wasn't in a position where he'd just be doing standard patrols. Either something had happened, or something was going to happen in this place. Rudo was surprised when Zanka mentioned his brother was here, which also reminded Injin that he didn't actually know about that either. So Injin explained that Zanka's older brother, Goka, was the second in command of the Hell Guards Red Horns Squad 1, and his older sister, Kyoka, was the commander of that same squad. He pointed out that the Najiki family was insanely elite. Injin then asked Zanka to confirm if even his dad was an ex-Hell Guard, to which Zanka reluctantly nodded. Ryo then asked what about his mom. Zanka answered that apparently, a year ago, she became the commander of all the Horn squads in the Hell Guard, leaving Injin completely floored by the level and status of his relatives and shouting that they were downright terrifying. Zanka agreed with that and added that he had already been disinherited by them, so he told them to stop talking about his family and just focus on finding the White Crow. Rudo stared at Zanka and silently wondered why he had joined the cleaners. They continued walking, surrounded by the bustling crowd, and Ryo excitedly pointed out that they were already close to the main hall. They glanced toward the summit and commented that that's where the doll festival would be happening. In Rudo's thoughts, he said that if they really did find the White Crow in the middle of all this, would they even be able to get any answers about where the choker maker was? Then, something caught his attention. An individual noticed they didn't seem to have any raffle tickets. When Rudo turned, the individual introduced herself as a staff member from the Doll Fest named Wing. She cheerfully welcomed them to the Doll Festival, and it seemed this was the same mysterious woman from earlier. Injin looked at her in confusion, so Wing held out what she was holding and said they were tickets. Since they seemed puzzled, she figured they didn't know what was going on. She explained that they were handing out raffle tickets for the opening act of the Doll Fest, a concert by none other than Tu Lily. The moment they heard that name, Ryo and Injin both burst with excitement and surprise, while Rudo looked confused at their reactions. Injin asked to confirm if she meant the Tu Lily, while Ryo asked if she was really here in person and whether the Doll Fest had announced it to the public. Wing answered that they had only announced it yesterday, and that it had already spread on TV and radio. On the other hand, Rudo was completely baffled by all of this and asked what exactly they were even talking about, prompting Injin to yell at him in disbelief, asking how he could be so stupid since Tu Lily was the biggest star in the ground. She sings, dances, and even does magic tricks. She was, according to him, the master of all kinds of performance art, the queen of entertainment. He also pointed out that they had been playing one of her songs the other day, and that Rudo had even been bobbing his head to it. That hit Rudo, and he remembered it really had happened. Wing then added that one of the Doll Festival's bigwigs had personally requested her to perform, and she agreed. She mentioned she was also a huge fan, and that she was eager to finish up her task so she could enter the event hall herself. So, she encouraged them to go ahead and claim their tickets from the box. Excited, Rio asked what the tickets were for, so Wing happily explained there would be a raffle, and one lucky winner would receive an item that came directly from Tu Lily's own body. Injin shouted "Oh snap" in pure joy, while Rudo quietly thought that he couldn't keep up with what was happening anymore. The three of them all drew a ticket, and when Rudo got his, Wing cheerfully told him he had pulled the last one. The box was now empty, meaning her job was done. Wing called Rudo her little wolf and said he was her lucky boy, and that she was sure great things were waiting for him. Rudo weakly agreed, still thinking that all he was really looking for here was the white crow. But instead of something normal like lucky number 777, the number he got was 666, which we all know is famously tied to the Antichrist or the devil. Wing told him that if he won, they'd call out the number on his ticket, so he should hurry to the stage if that happened. After that, they began walking toward the main hall, as Wing explained that the opening ceremonies were about to begin, so they should get inside quickly. Rudo stared at her and commented that her energy was way too high. As he thought to himself that he felt like he was getting farther and farther from the white crow, Rio was just overflowing with excitement about what was about to happen. When they entered, Rudo's eyes widened as he heard the roaring cheers of the massive crowd, all thrilled for the start of the performance. MC Mimo shouted that they were ready. It was time to start the doll festival. Rudo could feel the overwhelming excitement from everyone around him. And when Mimo announced the opening performance of the year, the queen of entertainment, Tu Lily, white, sparkling crows began to fly toward the center of the stage, immediately catching Rudo's attention. He was stunned by what he saw. As the crows gathered together into what looked like a cocoon, Tu Lily slowly emerged from the center, dressed in her extravagant costume and stylish flair, dazzling the entire crowd. Outside the main hall, we see Wing still standing with a smile, holding her raffle box while the crowd inside continued screaming with excitement. Back inside the main hall, Rudo's eyes widened as Tu Lily was introduced in a grand spectacle. After Tu Lily emerged on stage, Rudo immediately tried to get Injin's attention, saying he had seen the white crow. But because of his overwhelming excitement, Injin didn't notice and kept shouting how sick it was to be seeing Tu Lily live. Amo then commented that she didn't understand at all, but said there was a unique scent in the air inside this place. Rudo stared at Tu Lily and thought to himself that she must be the one Kuro was talking about, the person who knows where to find the choker maker. He felt annoyed at Kuro, thinking that he should have just told them her name from the start. That way, they wouldn't have had to search all over the place looking for the white crow. But as he looked around and saw how many people adored her and how famous she was, he wondered if there was even any way they could speak with her directly. On Tu Lily's side, she raised her staff and began her performance by unleashing an intense voice. The electrifying song echoed through the hall, shaking the bodies of the audience, leaving them stunned, thrilled, and amazed. Tu Lily struck a few poses while continuing to release aggressive sounds, causing the crowd to cheer even louder. Her gaze turned serious, and she tapped her staff on the floor, releasing a powerful blast of smoke that enveloped her. The crowd went silent and gaped in awe, but as the smoke cleared, Tu Lily reappeared, now wearing a completely different outfit. A dramatic ensemble featuring a pointed military-style hat, pentagram emblems, spiked shoulder pads, and high boots, giving her a chaotic, gothic ringmaster look. Rudo was shocked by the sudden wardrobe change, prompting Rio to cheerfully point out that she could do that because of her wand, her vital instrument named Lunavis, and added that Tu Lily could also use magic. After changing outfits, Tu Lily leapt into the air, capturing Rudo's attention again. It looked like she was flying, and the ghost and clown backdrops on the stage came to life. Those figures lit up, and so did the eyes of the audience. As the energetic music spread, Tu Lily shouted for everyone to raise their hands, and the crowd did just that, vibing to her song. August was moved to tears from the sheer joy, and even the MC raised his hands with the crowd. Injin and Rio couldn't contain their excitement either, while Rudo remained completely mind-blown by everything happening. Soon after, Tu Lily changed outfits again, and the audience roared once more. Rudo noticed that the song had ended. Tu Lily thanked everyone for coming and said it was a great honor to open this magnificent event, expressing that her heart was full of pride. She then said she offers her respect to this wonderful doll festival, her deepest gratitude to the White Crow who once saved her life, and a wish for blessings and smiles for all those watching and the performers here today, while the crowd continued to cheer and shower her with love. She told everyone to now sit back and enjoy the rest of the show. After her speech, Mimo shouted with incredible hype, thanking Lily for that awesome opening act. The crowd erupted in applause, and Injin finally calmed down, commenting how sick what they just saw was. Rudo echoed the same words, still in awe. Amo was overjoyed, realizing that the overwhelming joy of the crowd was the scent of joy she had sensed earlier, while Rio laughed and said that Lily had set an impossibly high bar for the next act. Zanka then jumped in to bring their group back to reality by pointing out that they had now found the one who knew where the choker maker was, and asked how they were supposed to approach and question her. Rudo was rendered speechless for a moment, then quickly remembered that yes, they did have that problem. Injin said that he didn't think they'd be able to talk to her, and Rio agreed, pointing out that they were just outsiders. Rudo then seriously asked if they should storm the stage, which prompted both Zanka and Injin to ominously warn him not to even think about it. Zanka then said that if that's the case, it looks like what they're holding might be their only hope. He pulled out his ticket, making Rudo suddenly realize what he meant. Zanka explained that if one of them wins, they'd be able to get up on stage. Rio, however, asked if they even had a chance to win, since their odds were basically 4 in a gazillion. Worried, Rudo asked what they would do if none of them won. Would they really storm the stage? Injin then considered that since the twins were part of the show, maybe if they got to talk to them, they could also speak with Lily. Either way, he figured the raffle probably wouldn't happen until the end of the show, so he suggested they just enjoy the doll show in the meantime. Zanka pointed out that that's usually why people came to the event anyway. Amo then grabbed their attention by saying that if they were interested in the raffle, she thought it was already starting. They all quickly turned their focus to the stage, just as Mimo began to address the crowd, saying it was time to end the suspense. He told everyone to take out their Lily raffle tickets, because the drawing was about to begin. As the crowd erupted in excited screams, Zanka commented that it was happening fast. Rio noted that the main doll show event hadn't even started yet. Injin, sounding irritated, pointed out that everyone knew raffles were supposed to be done during intermission or at the end of the event, and rhetorically asked if management missed the memo. Meanwhile, Rudo and Amo just stood there staring blankly with poker faces. Then, Lily said she was about to draw the winning ticket. The entire crowd buzzed with anticipation, wondering who the lucky winner would be, as the performer kept everyone hanging with suspense. Nonetheless, the scene kept us hanging even longer as it shifted to the conversation within Red Horn's Hellguard Company 1. Kyoka informed Goka about what they had discovered regarding the terrorist device, to which Goka clarified if she was saying that it was already in circulation. Kyoka explained that according to the man, they were all dependent on it and couldn't live without it. After contemplating for a moment, she ordered Goka to place Andio under immediate lockdown. She said the situation there was critical and what they had uncovered could shake the very foundation of the ground. She then instructed all operatives in the area that their top priority was to apprehend the target, and while removing her choker, she added that from this point on, all communication would be done using the old methods. After that, the story returned to the doll festival, where Lily was just about to reveal the winning raffle number. She lifted the raffle box, and suddenly, all 4 sides of it popped open. However, the crowd stared in confusion because the box was completely empty. Besides Zanka, just as he was pointing out the obvious, something began to glow. Rio, Injin, and Amo all turned toward Rudo, because the glow was coming from him. Rudo was utterly stunned as his card began to shine, and the glow was so bright it could be seen across the entire hall. His friends started wondering if he was really the one who got picked. Lily then pointed at him and said that the winning number would be announced by the lucky audience member holding the glowing ticket, which left Rudo completely thrown off, realizing she meant him. But he hadn't even drawn a number, which made the entire crowd erupt in excited screams. Mimo said he couldn't contain his flabbergasted response, greatly praised Lily, and pointed out that even a simple raffle turns into something spectacular in her hands. Rudo's friends were beyond thrilled and couldn't believe he won. while he himself was shaking from all the excitement. Next, Lily asked if their lucky winner could join her on stage, and as she snapped her fingers, something began to happen to Rudo's body. And just like that, he vanished from beside Oniii-Chan, startling everyone. They were shocked at his sudden disappearance, but their attention was quickly grabbed by the shouts of the audience near the stage and the stunned expression on Mamo's face. Mamo asked if this was another of Lily's magic tricks because the winner was suddenly on stage. He had actually teleported. Zanka and the others were completely dumbfounded. Zanka couldn't believe that Lily could use teleportation magic, saying they knew she utilized magic and such, but this was way too much. Rio, thrilled, called Lily way too sick, while Oniii-Chan, full of envy, called Rudo a lucky bastard. Amo asked what exactly happens when someone wins, and Oniii-Chan explained that they said you get to take one item directly from Lily's person. Despite his jealousy, Oniii-Chan was glad that this event saved them from a few problems. As Rudo stood there while Lily asked for his name and a staff member handed him the mic, he thought to himself that Rudo really did manage to make a deal with the information broker. So if anyone could get information about where to find the choker maker, it would be him. However, still dazed and shocked from the teleportation, Rudo absent-mindedly asked where he was, causing Oniii-Chan to facepalm. Zanka commented that he'd imagined exactly that would happen to Rudo if you suddenly threw him onto a stage out of nowhere. Rio added that with their mission, the teleportation, and that massive crowd, she couldn't blame Rudo for being completely flustered, while Oniii-Chan just thought to himself that this was exactly the kind of guy Rudo was. Over on Amo's side, even though she wore a smile, she ominously asked if Rudo was in trouble and added whether she should release a scent toward that woman. Oniii-Chan quickly told her no and remarked that she was terrifying on far too many levels. In his mind, he cheered Rudo on and told him he needed to push through this challenge. We then shifted back to Rudo, who was incredibly flustered, overwhelmed by the chaos, and tried to calm himself by focusing on the mission. As he slowly and nervously said 666 as his number, he thought about the name Lily and wondered if she really was the White Crow, meaning he had to ask her about the choker maker. But the question was, when could he ask it? He glanced at Lily and wondered if she truly was the White Crow. When he saw the White Crow symbol on her headpiece, he felt even more certain. His attention was completely locked on her as she stared back into his eyes with a strange aura that heightened all of Rudo's senses. Lily noticed his reaction and decided to create a moment just for the two of them. As she waved her staff, she excused them from the crowd and said that to hand over an item from her person, she would need to remove it, and for that, they needed privacy. Lily conjured a bunker of thorns that could only fit the two of them, causing the audience to whisper in curiosity. Oniii-Chan, once again envious, muttered that Rudo was a lucky bastard. Next, we entered the scene inside the thorn barrier, where Rudo was visibly nervous as he stared back at Lily. After a brief moment of silence, Lily finally spoke and asked if he was the son of Alto Surbrek. Rudo suddenly remembered how, back when he was still in the sphere, people used to call him the son of a murderer. They said it was his father's fault that those people were dirty, and that if a father is a criminal, it's only natural for the child to end up the same one day. He also recalled the time he pestered Regdo to finally tell him the name of his father. After pushing persistently, he managed to get it out of him. His father's name was Alto Surbrek, just as Lily had mentioned. Rudo stared at her at first, and just as he was about to respond, he held himself back from lashing out. But with a dark, ominous tone, he asked Lily what exactly she knew. How did she even know that? And was she also from the sphere? Lily noticed his growing anger while he continued to question her, asking if his father was still alive and if he was here on the ground. As Rudo's powers began to activate from his agitation, his aura burst out behind him as he demanded to know what she knew. Lily, however, remained unfazed. After observing his reaction, she began to wonder and said that she wasn't part of any kind of upper management. That confused Rudo, making him lose focus for a moment and wonder what she meant, which puzzled her in return. Raising her staff, Lily loudly declared that she was the queen of entertainment, or at least, that's what people called her. But in her words, she was just a clown with a dream to bring smiles to people's faces, so there was no such thing as up top or down below for her. Rudo tried to clarify that by up top, he didn't mean it that way, but Lily interrupted him again, saying it wasn't possible for her to know whether his father was here for the show, since after all, she had never met him. Rudo fell silent for a moment after hearing that, then thought to himself that he couldn't believe this woman was a total airhead. Lily then added that he shouldn't be asking others whether his father is still alive. Someone once told her that parents are happiest when their children speak to them directly. Outside the thorn hut that Lily had created, the murmuring crowd speculated what could be happening inside. Even Mimo was confused about what exactly was going on, while Injin fumed with jealousy and called Rudo a lucky bastard again.
It should have been me, not him!
Back inside the thorn hut, the conversation continued right after Rudo explained the White Crow. Lily realized that when Rudo saw her performance and costume, he assumed she was the White Crow. She explained that the White Crow was someone special to her. When she was just a little girl, she ended up in a no-man's land and got into a dangerous situation. It was during that time that a White Crow found her and led her to safety. She was so terrified that she couldn't stop crying, so the crow danced in a funny way just to make her smile. From that moment, the White Crow became the theme of her soul. She wanted to bring smiles to others just like the White Crow had done for her, and she swore upon her soul that she would do just that. She then said she supposed she was the closest thing to a White Crow at this festival, and remarked how surprised she was that Rudo was looking for her too, leaving him confused about what she meant by that. Lily explained that a certain friend of hers had asked her to make contact with the son of Alto Surbrek, which immediately caught Rudo's attention. But, she added, it was quite hard to find him. Her friend had told her what he looked like, and that he belonged to the cleaners, but every cleaner she approached just looked at her in confusion. Turns out, the cleaners Lily was talking to were actual janitors who clean rooms and hallways, prompting Rudo to mentally comment that he's pretty sure those aren't the same cleaners. As a last resort, she went to the information broker, who told her that Rudo would be invited to the upcoming doll festival, which made Rudo suddenly realize that this entire setup was orchestrated. He immediately grew concerned and asked her to hold on. If she went to the information broker, that meant she had paid a price. Lily cheerfully reported that she was now completely broke, prompting Rudo to shout that Kuro must have drained her dry. Right after, Rudo was overwhelmed by an indescribable sensation from realizing what had happened, as if Kuro had used him to swindle an innocent woman. Still, Lily added that despite being penniless, the staff had taken care of everything else. She said that the raffle was suggested to her by the staff as well, and was even set up for her, and all that she needed to do was make the cards. After that, Lily invited Rudo to continue with their raffle and said she would now give the gift to the winner, or rather, a special delivery from her friend meant for him. She pulled something out from her cleavage, and from the middle of it, she brought out a choker. Rudo was confused as he reached for it, while Lily explained that the choker was specially made and that his job was to wear it after he stepped off the stage. Then Lily said that she had almost forgotten something and began casting a spell on the choker. It was supposedly to ensure that it would appear different to everyone else, except for him. Rudo was puzzled about what she meant by that, but Lily just brushed it off and said she was merely a delivery girl. She claimed she didn't know anything, not even about his father. The only thing she said she knew was the man's name. Rudo aggressively questioned her claim that she didn't know anything, commenting that if that were the case, she wouldn't be able to say where the choker maker could be found. But before he could finish what he was saying, Lily cut in and said that the only thing she did know was this. That person over there, gesturing as if pointing to the other end of the choker, really wanted to talk to him. Right after that, Lily began to exit the thorn hut, wishing him the best of luck. Then Lily made a grand reappearance and apologized to the audience for keeping them waiting, announcing that their raffle winner, number 666, had already received his prize. Now that that was done, her role was also over, so she bid them farewell and hoped she had made them smile. Mimo shouted in excitement, thanking Lily for her most excellent, mind-blowing, and titillating opening act. But before she left, she whistled at Rudo and whispered to him to tell whoever he was going to talk to that she said hello. Lily then bowed and said they'd all meet again, shouting Talemi. Lily disappeared after saying that, while the crowd screamed and cheered for her. Next, Mimo announced that their program had been completely messed up, but apparently, that was fine. Just as he was about to say they should take a look at what their lucky winner received, he was completely stunned by what he saw, and everyone there was equally shocked, their eyes wide open in disbelief. It turned out that what they saw in Rudo's hands was a G-cup bra, and since only he and Tu Lily had been inside the Thorn Hut earlier, they assumed it must have belonged to the Queen of Entertainment. Rudo immediately jumped off the stage, and when he noticed the way people were staring at him, he started wondering what the choker he received must look like to other people. When he reached his group, Oniii-Chan furiously pointed at him while Rudo just began to apologize, saying he didn't get the chance to ask Tu Lily about the choker maker. He remembered that Tu Lily told him to put the choker on after stepping off stage, so he did just that, prompting a range of extreme emotional reactions from his companions. Zanka cringed hard and kept yelling that it was just too weird and audacious no matter how many times he looked at it. Rio burst out laughing. Oniii-Chan, despite being jealous, actually praised Rudo, and Amo clutched her chest while commenting that, so that's what Rudo liked. She apologized, saying she wasn't so gifted. Rudo was left completely baffled, wondering what on earth they were seeing, but he quickly found out when Rio, still laughing, pointed out that he was wearing a bra. The choker then began to buzz, catching Rudo's attention. Oniii-Chan said that Rudo had to explain in exact, minute, and sensual detail what happened behind the curtain. That made Rudo scream in frustration while running away, completely confused and annoyed, shouting that it wasn't like that and telling Oniii-Chan to shut up, while thinking to himself that he still couldn't hear anything from the choker. After getting far enough, he sat down on the ground and commented that maybe he'd be able to hear it from here. He thought to himself that now that the white crow had vanished without a trace, this choker might be his only hope. He started wondering who it might be connected to, and whether it was the friend Tu Lily had mentioned. The choker began to buzz again, so he immediately listened closely and asked if the person on the other end could hear him. The surroundings fell silent for a moment, and then suddenly, the voice on the other line declared that he was the choker maker. Rudo froze in shock and confusion. The person addressed him by his full name and said that he knew Rudo's wish, which brought a look of deep astonishment and unease to his face. This individual claimed to have information about his father and a piece of the Watchmen series. He was then given an ultimatum. If he wanted those things, he would have to destroy the doll festival. While all of this was happening, the scene shifted to the parking lot, where Marij and Mildreda were waiting inside their car. Marij commented that the show should be starting by now. She asked Mildreda if she was really sure she didn't want to watch the twins, to which Mildreda replied that she was only there to give them a ride. Mildreda explained that right now, she was taking care of these jobs so the others could fully enjoy their rare day off. Marij then pointed out that while it was great to care for others, she also needed to remember to care for herself. Marij's choker buzzed, and someone provided her with information. She thanked the person and told them they could now return to base, addressing them as Agra. She also informed them that the cleaning in their area was already done, and they offered to retrieve the remaining items. However, Mildreda stopped her and said they were still waiting on one more status report. She then commented that she didn't know how Semiyu was handling all of this on her own and informed Marij that she would be the one organizing those documents. After that, Mildreda glanced to her side and had a strange feeling. She took a sip of her drink and commented that something stinks, prompting Marij to note that she seemed to notice it too. The smell of high alert was thick in the air. Suddenly, a door opened on Mildreda's side, and several people introduced themselves as the Hell Guard. They surrounded them, and one of the guards pointed a katana at them, demanding to know what they were doing there. Mildreda and Marij raised their hands in surrender. Marij then wondered aloud what was going on, seeing how so many Hell Guards had gathered in one place. With their hands still raised, the scene shifted to inside the main hall, where people were also raising their hands, but this time in excitement. The crowd cheered as Mimo introduced the next performer with their vital instrument. A girl stepped onto the stage, holding a cat-like doll as her vital instrument. When she used her powers on it, the doll transformed and grew in size. It began to roam around the main hall, dropping candies as it moved. While his companions watched the event, Rudo continued speaking with the man who had introduced himself as the choker maker. The words of the choker maker echoed in his mind. The price for the information about his father and a piece of the Watchmen series was to destroy the doll festival. He thought to himself that he needed to find the choker maker to get a clue on how to return to the sphere. But now this random guy was claiming to be him and even trying to make a deal. This led him to realize that he needed time to gather his thoughts. However, when he didn't respond right away, the choker maker firmly said there was no time to waste on confusion, making Rudo shudder. He continued, pointing out that at that very moment, Rudo was already at the scene, and that it wasn't just a coincidence, so he needed to seize the opportunity. His tone became sharper, turning into a command. He said he wouldn't accept any questions. Rudo had to act. He ordered him to do it, right now, immediately. Finally, he said the hall was packed with people and issued an even more unnerving command. Rudo had to wipe them all out. Rudo stood up and looked toward the stage. He saw the same performer speaking. She said that participating in the doll festival had always been her dream. She began to open up, confessing that she had no parents, and her grandmother poured everything she had into creating the dolly she now held, to help her feel like she was never alone. She emphasized that it was her most treasured possession. People in the crowd began to tear up and cheer her on. She added that even though she would never see her grandmother again, she hoped that by performing at the festival, her grandmother's spirit would see that she had grown up. Hearing that heartwarming story, Rudo seriously told the choker maker that he wasn't going to do what he wanted, leaving the choker maker speechless, asking what he meant by that. Rudo repeated firmly that he wasn't going to play his stupid game. He pointed out how this guy suddenly appeared and, out of nowhere, ordered him to destroy the doll fest. Then, clearly annoyed, he asked if he really thought he'd just follow that order. While gripping the choker angrily, Rudo added that he wasn't an idiot. He even called him choker maker and asked if he was really the one behind it all. He said he wasn't so twisted that someone could offer him candy and he'd just go hurt other people. The person on the line expressed disappointment toward Lily, saying it seemed she didn't explain things properly to Rudo. The choker maker apologized and explained that he had instructed Lily not to say more than what was necessary, which left Rudo confused. It seemed, however, that he had been left out of nearly the entire explanation that should have been given to him. The speaker pointed out that there was no more time left, so he would have to deliver it to him briefly. The choker maker said that the hall was full of people, and contrary to what he said earlier, telling him to get rid of them, he now told Rudo that he needed to save them. As this was happening, the scene suddenly shifted to the staircase leading to the backstage. There, a few guards were seen standing watch, so one of them immediately shouted at the approaching group that only authorized personnel were allowed inside. It turned out to be Goku's group, and he didn't let the man stop him from entering. The choker maker added to Rudo that someone in that area was trying to use his chokers for malicious purposes. As we were shown Wing preparing to leave his position, the choker maker also said that the evil bastard he was referring to had been concocting a plan for a very long time. And now, that person had finally found a way to rule the world, which made Rudo wonder what he meant by that. Meanwhile, behind Engine, we were shown Fu sitting quietly in a corner, thinking that he had already mastered the techniques to soften the pain of feeling like an outsider. Rio caught his attention when she called out to him. As he turned around, she reminded him that he had already met the twins before, and now, it was their turn to perform. She invited him to come and watch the act with them. Fu's face lit up upon hearing that, and he immediately went to Zanka's side, cheerfully saying that someone had finally given him an order, which confused Zanka. When they looked around for Rudo, Rio pointed out that he had moved to one side, away from the group, and was now ignoring the main doll show just to enjoy the bra he had acquired. However, it was clear from Engine's face that he didn't think that was the real reason why Rudo had distanced himself from them. Next, we returned to Rudo as the choker maker told him that the person they were facing was using the doll festival as his grand unveiling. That person wanted to announce the reign of a new ruler to demonstrate his power, which left Rudo confused as to what kind of power he was referring to. The choker maker then replied that it was the power to rule. While someone was still performing on stage, we saw the Hell Guards running toward the backstage as the choker maker continued, saying how ridiculous the idea of peaceful rule with no wars or bloodshed sounded. Yet the person they were facing was trying to do exactly that, using his own chokers. Rudo wondered how a choker could be used to rule anything. But before long, something clicked, and the choker maker explained to him that the choker was the most convenient communication device on the ground, so everyone had one, and everyone had become dependent on them. Even those in costume were still wearing them. The choker maker's intended message earlier began to sink in for Rudo, especially now as he added that the previous order to destroy the doll festival wasn't just some random task to test whether Rudo would follow him. As Goku reached the door to a certain room, the choker maker added that to the person they were dealing with, every living human being was merely a doll he could control. Suddenly, someone spoke through the microphone in the main hall, calmly instructing everyone there to be silent for a moment. Upon hearing that, Oniii-Chan and his companions widened their eyes in alarm as they realized something was off. It was as if the pupils of the audience members had changed, and all of them went silent, as though they hadn't been cheering joyfully just moments ago. We were then shown Goku again, and unfortunately, he had just missed catching the person he was trying to apprehend in the main hall announcer room. The choker maker added that he knew it was already too late. That was why he was now asking Rudo to save the people from that rotten piece of human filth. From the announcer room of the main hall, Mimo suddenly jumped out and landed right in the middle of the stage, praising everyone in the crowd for obeying his command to fall silent, revealing that he was the enemy the choker maker had been talking about. After that, Mimo carefully observed all the people he had taken control of. After a few moments of watching them, he turned on the microphone he was holding and attempted to give the people some commands. He ordered them to clap, which they immediately did. Then he told them to jump, and they followed again. He then tried making them turn to their right, and they all started spinning in that direction. Mimo began to laugh slyly and commented that it was perfect. He pressed what looked like a communications device attached to the collar of his suit and addressed the person on the other end named Felix, asking what the range of his rule was, to which the other replied immediately and called him Sir. Felix, standing on a high place in the Doll Fest venue, explained that it was the same as when he used his normal powers and addressed him as my Lord Mimo. He said Mimo ruled over everything within the range of his microphone's sound. In other words, he now reigned over the entire festival venue they were in, which earned him praise from Mimo. Next, he asked his photographer how the photos were coming along. While reviewing his shots, the photographer said he got a great photo, referring to him as Mimo the news reporter. On the other side, Mimo spoke to someone named Gil and asked what the Hell Guards were currently doing. Gil laughed and said they were still tracking him and mentioned that it seemed like they weren't wearing chokers. Mimo was impressed by how quick-witted they were and praised them, saying how clever they were and how good they were at sniffing out a plot. Gil then asked him if he thought it was the decoy that ratted them out, and said that if Mimo wanted him to take out the Hell Guards, she'd need a raise, to which Mimo responded that it wouldn't be necessary. He pointed out that the Hell Guards would do everything they could to avoid hurting innocent civilians. While he said this, we were shown Goku secretly peeking out from the announcer room. On Oniii-Chan's side, when they saw the state of all the people in the area, Zanka, clearly creeped out, asked what it was that he was seeing. While observing the scene too, Rio asked if this was part of the Doll Fest, thinking maybe this was the surprise Mimo the news reporter mentioned earlier. She then asked if it was just her, or did Mimo break character. Meanwhile, Oniii-Chan started walking toward Rudo. We then returned to Rudo, who was watching the whole situation unfold, and the choker maker told him that this was Mimo's rule, that this was his power. With concern settling in, Rudo realized that if they had been wearing their chokers today, they would have ended up like the people down there. The choker maker pointed out that this was the silver lining. He and his friends just happened to not be wearing their chokers today. Because of that coincidence, the choker maker asked why they weren't wearing them, and Rudo explained it was because Oniii-Chan told them to leave them behind today. August agreed since they didn't match his designs. The choker maker was surprised when he heard it was Oniii-Chan who said that and questioned why he would do that. Rudo replied that it was because the information broker told them that the chokers were all being listened to. The choker maker paused for a moment in thought and commented, wondering just how much that guy really knew. Suddenly, someone placed a hand on Rudo's shoulder, and it turned out to be Oniii-Chan. He said to Rudo that to think the prize would actually be the very person they were searching for. After saying that, he turned to the choker maker and said that if he wanted to talk, he had to start by telling them everything. While that was happening, we returned to Mimo, who was still watching the people spin in circles. He asked how long they were supposed to keep spinning, then finally ordered them to stop. After doing that, Mimo declared that if he wasn't mistaken, for some reason, there was a spheroid among them right now. He called out Rudo's full name and sternly ordered him to come up to the stage. Rudo's name caught Goku's attention, making him ask himself what Rudo was doing here. From a staircase leading to the stage, Rudo descended, drawing the attention of the audience toward him. Mimo commented how surprising it was that of all people, Rudo was here at the doll festival, and added that no one told him he would be coming. He recognized him back when he received a gift from Tu Lily, and admitted he was stunned speechless upon seeing him. In the blink of an eye, Oniii-Chan appeared near the stage and struck Mimo solidly in the face with his umbrella, sending him flying and dragging across the floor. It looked like a perfect golf hole-in-one as Mimo's body rolled right into the stage entrance. Oniii-Chan cracked his neck as a warm-up afterward, and a shadow began to appear beside him. Shortly after, Rudo landed there, smashing part of the stage as he did, his face serious and seething. Oniii-Chan caught the microphone that Mimo had dropped outside and said he had heard everything, referring to him as Mimo the news reporter. Rudo, clearly furious, called him a pathetic loser and questioned his desire to be a ruler, asking if he seriously wanted to be someone that cringe. He added that for that kind of messed up garbage, did he really take the feet of the choker maker and the parents that raised him? After a few seconds of silence as they stared at where Mimo had fallen, Mimo suddenly commented that he didn't recall giving him permission to speak. This caught Rudo off guard, and Mimo added that it was strange. He was wearing a choker, yet he wasn't following his commands. It didn't take long for Mimo to notice the difference, and he remarked that now he understood. He asked if what Rudo was wearing was the prize he got from Tu Lily, which visibly surprised Rudo. Mimo started walking out from the stage entrance while saying he understood now. Rudo had been a naughty little thing, calling him Countess. He explained that when a parent is far away, the child is supposed to stay home and behave. Then he suddenly remembered something and casually said he forgot to mention this, with zero awareness or even a shred of hesitation, and told Rudo straight to his face that he was the one who killed his parent. That immediately triggered an intense rage in Rudo, who began to shake with fury, expressing his hatred for the man before him. Right after that, Mimo abruptly changed the subject and asked if they ever felt sentimental over a stranger they had never met in their entire life. If he told them the same story, would they still feel sentimental for him? Especially Oniii-Chan. He pointed out how Oniii-Chan hit him without warning, and asked if that meant he really felt that sorry for Rudo. Oniii-Chan arrogantly replied that he hated to admit it, but unlike Rudo, he couldn't get angry for a random stranger he didn't even know, because he wasn't that nice. However, he added that all that nonsense about being a ruler gave him secondhand embarrassment just hearing about it, so he figured he had to wake Mimo up. He then pointed out that he had confiscated his vital instrument, and asked if now it was true that Mimo couldn't give out his commands to the ones he had under control anymore. After that, Oniii-Chan declared that the doll festival was officially closed. From one of the spiked curves above them, an individual fired a fast projectile in his direction, but fortunately, his reflexes were quick enough that he dodged it by ducking. However, the attacker didn't stop there, because when Oniii-Chan looked at where the projectile had landed, it started moving and flew back toward him, hitting the microphone in his hand. Because of this, it was sent flying in Mimo's direction. As that was happening, Mimo repeated the comment Rudo made about the pathetic and embarrassing dreams, and said that people were far too judgmental when it came to what others were trying to accomplish. He said that maybe his goal was the dumbest nonsense anyone had ever heard, but that didn't matter anymore. The eyes of Rudo and Oniii-Chan began to show concern, and Mimo continued speaking, emphasizing that what truly reigns supreme in this world isn't how smart or beautiful a dream is, but how it's brought to life. At the same time, we were shown the individual responsible for the earlier projectile attack, as Mimo gripped his microphone tightly. In the next scene, the choker maker began explaining how he creates a choker. He explained that to make one, he needs to use his own blood. He said he coats a random cord with his blood, grants it his power, and that's the core recipe for crafting a choker. He added that because he possesses a piece of the Watchmen series, mass production became possible. And since the process requires his blood, Mimo took advantage of it. According to him, Mimo's power gives him the ability to control a person by drinking that person's blood. That's why Mimo has been continually extracting his blood. He's been controlling him, repeatedly forcing him to make chokers. all for Mimo's worthless delusion as a megalomaniac. Injin repeated what the choker maker said, that if Mimo drinks someone's blood, he can control them, and pointed out that this means Mimo has likely drunk the blood of everyone in the audience. He added that it's not just them. It's highly possible Mimo has drunk the blood of every single person wearing a choker, prompting Rudo to ask when Mimo managed to pull off such a stunt. The choker maker then explained that creating a choker requires his blood, and using it requires the user's own blood. He emphasized that to become a registered user, they all had to infuse their own blood into their choker, which made Injin recall that he did the same thing years ago. The choker maker continued explaining that chokers are infused with his blood during production, and the first blood mixed with it becomes the user's blood. He then said that Mimo focused on that combination, refined his ability, and developed the power to control both him and anyone whose blood has mingled with his. Injin asked if his analogy was correct, that Mimo wets the whistle using the maker's blood, then uses that whistle to control the wearers, and commented that it's the perfect example of how nothing good comes from trusting the wrong middleman. He also asked if it was true that the reason Rudo isn't under Mimo's control is because his choker is special. The choker maker agreed and explained that the choker he gave to Tu Lily is one of a kind. It doesn't require the user's blood, but it can only connect to him. He added that because Tu Lily held on to it until now, he's able to communicate with the two of them. Next, he pointed out that Rudo and the others are his only hope, and that only they can destroy this madness. With eagerness on his face to end it all, he pleaded for them to clean up this mess before the entire ground world turns into one giant doll festival. After hearing all of that, Rudo pointed at Mimo and said maybe removing every single choker from every person here would be too much work, but if they could just grab his mic or give him a good beating, this whole mess might just vanish. Rudo took a stance like a rabid dog ready to charge, his outfit only emphasizing that ferocity, and pointed out how Mimo goes on and on about ruling and making that dream a reality. But he trampled on something deeply important to these people, and if he had no plans of stopping that destruction, then he would never be Rudo's ruler. And it wouldn't just be him. They won't let him walk away from this either. Right then, the ones Rudo referred to made their entrance. From both sides at the top of the stage, Ryo and Zenka charged at Mimo, each sending in their own attacks that landed with tremendous impact. Zenka pointed out that no one ever told Mimo to lead everything, and Ryo commented on how creepy he is for spying on their private conversations. Rudo added that it doesn't matter whether they're in the sphere or on the ground, because this time, as someone who owns a piece of the Watchmen series, and on behalf of the choker maker Gauntus, he would destroy him. As he said those words, we were shown the situation of Fu, Amo, August, and Aishia. Then, despite being hit by the pair's attacks, Mimo still managed to arrogantly ask Rudo if it ever occurred to him that maybe that kind of talk was exactly why he hasn't been able to return to the sphere. Rudo's eyes widened upon hearing that. Mimo pointed out Rudo's desires, like his wish to return to the sphere and his pursuit of the person who killed his father, and said that they're standing right in front of him, yet he still couldn't see them. So Mimo insisted that Rudo still hasn't turned his dream into reality. It turned out that two individuals had arrived on the scene to help Mimo. One of them seemed capable of generating a shield, while the other, a girl who looked like an imp holding a baseball bat, was the one who launched the projectile at Injin earlier. Mimo then added that they should see how those two would realize their dreams in comparison. Their presence quickly caught Injin's group's attention. Mimo called the male companion Felix and asked what his dream was. With full respect, Felix answered that his dream is to protect him, which made Mimo comment that he's already turned that into reality. He then called his female companion Gil and asked her the same question. She said her dream might be to earn money while protecting him, to which he replied that she's right, and she's already making that dream a reality. Next, he mockingly asked what Rudo's group was like in comparison. To Zenka's face, he said he was the defective son of a prestigious Nijiku family, and pointed out that he kept seeking strength, but always lost to Jabber Wong, leaving Zenka in disbelief on how he knew this. Then he went after Injin, calling him the stray collector who always meddled in others' business but couldn't even tell them his real name, labeling him a hypocrite shrouded in mystery. After him, it was Ryo's turn. He called her Ryo Reaper and asked how her father was doing, something that clearly shocked her, but he wasn't done. He turned to Rudo and mercilessly asserted that he couldn't avenge his father's murder, couldn't return to the sphere, and no matter how hard he tried, he wouldn't accomplish anything. He dug into Rudo's very core with pure mockery, calling him a total dunce, and Rudo was absolutely furious. Unable to contain his rage, Rudo tried punching their barrier, but even with all his strength, he couldn't break through. With fury exploding in his eyes, Mimo commented again that nothing could be more ridiculous than this. We were then shown how Felix, by using a letter, could form his powerful shield. Mimo declared that not a single one of them had turned their dreams into reality, and asked if they really thought they could lecture someone who already had. He asked how long they think he's been setting this up. He explained that he has always taken action, always been there. He said he finished all his preparations, so he acted, and through that action, he made his dream a reality. He emphasized that even if his dream to rule was old-fashioned, he still made it come true. As his mic transformed and began glowing, he declared that Mimo the news reporter is no more. Now, before them stood Mimo the ruler. After saying that, he activated his vital instrument by turning its switch and called it a Lenhos. He shouted an order to it to unite the audience, and asked if they could see the 4 people standing before them, which made the crowd focus their eyes on Rudo's group, who instantly sensed something terrible was about to happen. When Rudo's group looked behind them, they saw the wave of people, like a massive tsunami, charging straight at them as Mimo shouted that they were to be killed. Before Rudo and the others could be crushed by the tsunami-like wave of people, the scene suddenly shifted to Goku's perspective, taking us back a few minutes earlier. It showed that he heard Rudo shouting that maybe removing all the chokers from everyone here would be too much work, but if they could just take Mimo's microphone or beat him down, this whole chaos would vanish. His subordinates arrived at the announcer room, and as one of them addressed him as Deputy Captain Nijiku, they asked if they had permission to launch their assault. He explained that their captain, Kyoka, had ordered them to apprehend Mimo. They didn't have enough proof to be involved before, but now, Mimo had removed his mask. He pointed out that Mimo was distracted, making this their best opportunity. However, after carefully observing Mimo and the situation below, Goku refused. He said that if they confronted him now, they'd be forced to fight his dolls, which were innocent humans under control. He added that if the cleaners launched a frontal attack, they would be hit from behind. He began walking out of the room and pointed out that they would engage in unglamorous work. While walking, he spoke to his sister in his thoughts, promising her that he would live up to her expectations and not return the way Zenka had. After that, we returned to the present where shock was written all over the faces of Zenka, Ryo, Injin, and Rudo from Mimo's attack. As the wave of human dolls fell upon them, Mimo screamed at them to kill the group. We then cut to Injin's side, where he was conflicted. If he dodged, all the people rushing at him would be destroyed, but if he didn't, his own group would be wiped out. This made him irritated with Mimo, asking aloud if he was really this devious. Then, unexpectedly, a massive swarm of hands rushed in to intercept Mimo's attack. It turned out to be another wave of human dolls that stopped the assault. Injin and Mimo were both stunned by what happened, and as Mimo watched the scene unfold, he was completely puzzled. It turned out that the one responsible was none other than Amo, who used her scent ability on the humans facing Mimo's dolls. Amo shouted ironically while doing this, saying it wasn't very nice to control people. It was also shown that while she did this, she was being carried on Fu's shoulders, and Rudo and Injin were shocked when they turned and saw the two. Mimo recognized her as Amo Impul and remarked that he hadn't realized Amo had joined the cleaners. On Amo's side, she asked the people she had marked with her scent to just hold on and stand strong for her. One of them responded with a vision of being with his sister, believing he could do it, while an elderly man declared he could do anything for his granddaughter. As Mimo closely observed the scene, he realized that Amo was basically using her powers to make some members of the audience smell something that triggered their urge to help her. He acknowledged that this was exactly how the Watchmen series worked. This quality, he said, was high enough to override his rule power. On the other side, Injin shouted in admiration for Amo, calling her rookie. However, Amo's demeanor suddenly shifted, and she angrily screamed at him not to talk to her like they were friends, leaving Injin speechless. Amo pointed out that if Injin had told them sooner why Rudo came to this place, maybe they could have helped immediately. Injin stammered an excuse and pointed out that he did tell them before they came to remove her choker, and hoped Amo understood that he had saved her from falling under Maimo's control. Still furious, Amo replied that none of that changed the fact that she was left out. So Injin grew irritated as well and clicked his tongue, which annoyed Amo, who yelled at him not to do that. Fu commented that he didn't know anything about it either. Amo suddenly shouted at him to stop just standing there and bring her closer to Rudo. Happily obeying, Fu felt a sense of bliss and remarked in his mind that when Amo gives him orders, it's not half bad. While all of this was happening, Maimo simply observed them, as if evaluating the situation. Suddenly, Rudo charged in and tried to hit him with a flying kick, but he still couldn't break through Felix's barrier, which made him shout out, asking if Maimo could just come out of there. At that moment, Gauntis warned him to back away, startling him and making him look toward Felix. From above them, we saw Gil already in position, ready to swing her bat, with a floating baseball in front of her. Moments later, she struck it hard, sending it flying fast toward Rudo. Fortunately, he managed to dodge, but he was still shocked, while Injin became fixated on the ball. When the ball hit the ground, Rudo didn't expect it to make a U-turn and come back at him for a second strike. Taken by surprise, Rudo failed to react, and the ball landed solidly on his right arm, seemingly breaking it. The intense pain was clear in his eyes, and Maimo immediately commented that he was very particular about his battle party. He pointed out that Felix was for defense and Gil was for ranged fighting. He said both of them were excellent soldiers. He added that Rudo needed his arm to use his powers. But just as he was about to point out that now, with that kind of arm, Rudo wouldn't be able to, Rudo suddenly interrupted and ominously asked what exactly was wrong with his hand, saying it was just a fracture while gripping it tightly. That remark caught Maimo's attention, and Rudo explained that he was already used to feeling pain in his arms. By the way, he added, Maimo talked way too much, and because of that, he figured out Maimo had no close-range fighter. That, he said, was Maimo's weakness. They locked eyes after he said that. In Gil's mind, she explained that they didn't really need one. For now, she said they could make up for it using her human puppets. Besides, Felix's shield was invincible, but no one knew that, so they kept trying to break it. Meanwhile, she could just keep hitting her balls toward the enemies, and proudly said that was her job. As she got ready to launch another fastball, she didn't expect Injin to jump up and beat her to it. Injin pointed out to the girl that at least she wasn't using her bat to hit people, and as he activated his Jinki, he said he had to give her props for that. After saying that, he tried to strike her with a downward thrust, which ended up destroying a large part of the stage's backdrop. Unfortunately, Gil dodged the attack and landed on the stage rails, questioning the irony of Injin using an umbrella as a weapon. If that's the case, she said, then let's begin, and all of them, she added, were about to get hit with her pitch. Gil dug into her inventory embedded in her headgear and pulled out 4 baseballs. After tossing them into the air, she hit all 4 at once with a single swing. The balls flew straight toward Injin's group. However, Zenka immediately noticed. With a smooth combo using his love stick, he precisely struck them all back in Gil's direction. The balls flew around her from every angle, astonishing Maimo and catching the girl completely off guard. Zenka pointed out that Maimo wasn't exactly wrong to call him the defective son of a prestigious family. He said he's just an average Joe, but his genius of a sister really put him through the ringer, and that was incredibly tough. Maimo would never know, but that girl used to force him to dodge live gunfire. Gil was taken aback hearing this, and as Zenka raised his staff, he said he hoped all their bullet-dodging games back then would finally pay off. Rio wasn't far behind and moved in quickly. She commented that in that case, she would handle the barrier. She swiftly reached Felix's side and caught his attention by remarking with mock curiosity that it looked like he was making the barrier with paper, and that scissors might easily cut through it. Felix felt a chill and turned to her in shock, clearly disturbed by how she managed to get there unnoticed. Back on Injin's side, he remarked that in that case, he'd just back up Amo, since Amo hated being left out. That left Felix even more bewildered by what was going on. Amo then shouted back at Injin, asking how dare he give her that kind of attitude. She never asked for his help, while Fu stood there blankly, feeling oddly at ease. Felix couldn't believe it and asked himself what in the world was wrong with the people they were up against right now. One of their friends' arms was literally broken. He explained that usually, the moment someone even slaps his Lord Mimo, his vision darkens and his blood boils instantly. But with the kind of reactions and movements Rudo's group was showing, he was left wondering why none of them seemed the least bit bothered by Rudo's injury. He stared in growing concern at the utterly unnerving nature of the cleaners and silently commented to himself, while addressing Mimo in his mind, that he might have chosen the wrong bear to poke. While all of this was happening, there were a few individuals who appeared unaffected by Mimo's trick, and from the seats of the venue, one of them began taking pictures of those people, while his companion remarked that these were the cleaners. He said he didn't expect them to be so scrawny, to which the one taking photos replied that it would be better not to underestimate the cleaners. He explained that those people were the ones handling trash beasts every day, creatures they still knew nothing about. From the cleaners' point of view, he added, he was sure that mere humans must look like insignificant specks. And believe it or not, he said, the cleaners were still holding back because they didn't want to kill anyone and wanted to preserve their humanity. But as this individual stared at Rio, he said, all except for that girl. On Rio's side, while she was poking Felix's barrier, she was amazed, saying that she was already standing right in front of him, yet he still wasn't fighting back or doing anything. She remarked that this must be the only power this man had, causing Felix to furrow his brows. Rio then readied her ripper and asked how many times she would need to cut through it before breaking past, adding that it looked like she had time now to experiment. Mimo then explained to us that a carta, or letter, is the embodiment of one's thoughts. He said the sender chooses the perfect paper for the recipient, writes it with their own hand, and personally brings it to the post office to send it, carrying a heart full of emotion. He pointed out that this was Felix's vital instrument, the carta, and mentioned that it was ironclad. He further added that if the letter came from a loved one, the thoughts contained within it would become even more unshakable. And now, Rio was trying to cut through those very thoughts to break through. Mimo grinned with malicious intent and asked if that was all right with Rudo, as if suggesting that Felix's thing was important and shouldn't be destroyed. But because of the rage and hatred building up inside Rudo, he ominously told Rio to go ahead and cut that defender guy to pieces, but to leave Mimo to him. Rudo prepared himself, planting his feet apart for a fast charge, and as his aura flared, he declared seriously that he wanted to deal with that man himself. Because of that, Mimo shouted that he too was just as heartless as the others, all while continuing to send wave after wave of mindless people toward them. While this was going on, let's turn our attention to the standoff between Zanka and Gil. Gil quickly climbed the stairs of the seating area to distance herself from Zanka, who in turn tried to strike her with a powerful swing from his love stick, destroying part of the staircase she was running on, but she still managed to jump away and dodge it. Amused, she commented that this chase felt like a game of tag, while Zanka kept his eyes locked on her. As she ran, Gil noticed that Zanka wanted to get close since she was a ranged fighter. Teasingly, and as she picked up speed, she said, well, he might not know it, but she was fast too. Zanka replied sarcastically, that's so, as he prepared to throw his vital instrument. After winding up, he hurled it forcefully at Gil, but just as it was about to reach her, she noticed and managed to deflect it with her baseball bat. Even so, Zanka's pursuit didn't end there. When Zanka's love stick flew upward, he quickly chased after it. Gil looked back at him, and as their eyes met, Zanka caught the love stick and commented that it seems that her bat didn't just randomly alter anything it hit. She stopped and glanced at her bat, then answered that Zanka was right. She said her vital instrument, the Gil Moreau, could only turn balls into breaking balls. Smiling, she added that she hadn't tested it out yet, but wondered what would happen if she hit a guy in those balls, which made Zanka recoil with a disgusted expression. Because of his reaction, she asked if that made him lose his balls. While this was happening, let's return to the situation on stage, where Amo was cheering on the people she had controlled with her scent to face Mimo's human tsunami. She acted like a cheerleader while shouting the words go go fight fight, while Injin, caught off guard, asked what on earth was going on and commented that Amo was quite the force. Amo pointed out to him that what she was seeing here was love, and she explained that love is a magical thing that gives people power. To this, Injin remarked that in a way, that sounded insane. Maimo listened to their conversation, and because of that, it seemed he thought of something to do. He suddenly asked Amo, addressing her by her full name, if she had felt love from Rudo when he was raining down fists of fury on her, something that made Rudo's body tremble and caused Amo to fall silent. He pointed out that Amo once bared her fangs at the cleaners and even took a punch from Rudo. And now, he added, she's gotten into her head that she wants to help Rudo. After saying that, he asked if it was really because she liked Rudo, or if he was merely a replacement for her mister. Then, he urged Amo to think back and remember the pain of that unfair beating she had suffered and told her that she had done nothing wrong. She was only trying to defend herself. He tried to twist her thinking by painting the cleaners as the villains, saying they want to make her think she was the bad guy so they can take advantage of her Watchmen series shoes. And perhaps, he said, she was merely trying to relive her past. Was she really willing to fight for those people after everything? However, to Maimo's surprise, Amo responded that she doesn't mind and that she and Rudo had already made up, which left the man speechless. She explained that both she and Rudo had done wrong, so they apologized to each other. She added that in the past, all she had ever known were cold hands, but Rudo was the very first person to touch her with warm hands, as she recalled the time they spoke in the HQ infirmary. In a proud and confident tone, she declared that Rudo's hands made her world bigger. Rudo looked at her with admiration and surprise at everything she said, and Amo continued by saying that she would stay in an environment where Rudo was and would learn more about the sense of the world outside. If that was the case, Maimo said, then let him teach her how their world devours ignorant beings who have only just emerged from their cages and gobble them up. As he said this, he reopened his microphone, and backstage, we were shown the twins and the other givers who had participated in the doll show earlier, now seemingly under Maimo's control as well. In the next scene, we return to a point in time where Corvus was talking to Amo. After hearing what she said, Corvus commented that he understood she wanted to reform herself to make amends, and remarked that that alone was a good enough reason to join the cleaners. This made Amo ask if Corvus truly thought her reason wasn't shallow compared to the others who were there, to which Corvus answered not at all, and explained that some of the others were there simply to have a place where they belonged. But he added that anyone can just be there. So, he decided to give her a job. Amo paused at that, and said she didn't want to fight. So Corvus informed her that fighting trash beasts wasn't the only way a giver could contribute. He looked at Amo and eventually pointed out that her power was smell. He also asked if he was right in thinking that Amo could recreate a scent from a moment she had experienced, make someone smell it, and her power would then make that person recall similar memories. Amo answered yes and explained that she was especially good at triggering memories that made people feel like they were in love or reminded them of being with someone they cared about, but added that not once did anyone ever look very happy when affected by it. Because of that, Corvus decided that in that case, she should become a healer, which confused Amo. Corvus commented that he's guessing she was a very sensitive person and pointed out that sensitive people are able to willingly absorb their experiences. He said he believed she could be someone who could use her experiences to comfort others and lift their spirits. After that, we returned to the present, where Maimo was pointing out, while Injin and the rest were being surrounded by a massive number of human puppets, that this is where lack of experience leads. Fear and anxiety were evident on Amo's face as she experienced this. Maimo said her vital instrument and powers were indeed highly exceptional, but asked if it was true she lacked the supply of sense or experiences needed to actually use those powers. He then asked if she think every person there has someone that they'd want to protect. He pointed out that she was an ignorant little girl who had spent nearly a decade locked up in a tower, and mockingly asked if she really thought she could use her experiences to motivate others. He also pointed out that with no real experience, her power was virtually a pearl before swine, whereas in his case, he had refined his words to fully control the masses, so it was impossible for her to expect to defeat him. The thousands of people surrounding them began to rush forward again, while Maimo shouted at her, welcoming her to the real world. Horror spread across Amo's face as it happened, and it didn't take long before they were completely swallowed up by the countless mindless dolls, which made Rudo scream out in concern and worry for Amo. Maimo then called out to Ryo and Rudo and said that frankly, he was sick of them. He spoke into his mic and summoned the puppeteer performers of the doll festival, ordering them to kill Rudo and Ryo, saying they have opposed him. In an instant, the vital instruments of the puppeteer performers emerged from backstage and all charged at the two of them. The shock in Rudo's eyes was clear upon seeing it, while Maimo told them that if they wanted to beat him, they'd first have to defeat those people. But to do that, he said, they'd have to harm the treasures of those innocent people, and truthfully, he was certain they wouldn't be able to avoid it. When Rudo turned to one of the puppeteer performers charging at them, he saw that it was the young girl who had lost her parents, which deeply shocked him. After that, Maimo let out a deep breath and joyfully said that he loved the view from the top of his pedestal. On Amo's side, it turned out that they were saved by Injin, who jumped high and glided using his umbrella. However, because of that, several innocent civilians were crushed as their bodies collided with each other, which made Injin feel guilty. As they glided toward a safe area, he frustratingly said that they didn't want them to get hurt, while Amo in his arms began to feel overwhelmed by negative emotions. After dropping them off at their previous vantage point, where they had been watching, he ordered Fu to take Amo somewhere safer and not let her get caught, where Fu cheerfully bowed and thanked him for the parade of orders. However, it seemed Amo no longer had the will to move, and Maimo's words began to echo in her mind. She started to ask herself, while recalling Corvus's words, saying he believed she could be someone who used her experiences to comfort and uplift others, if she could really become that kind of person. Maimo's words echoed as well, that she was an ignorant little girl who spent nearly a decade locked in a tower, and asked if she really thought she could use her experiences to motivate others. She admitted she couldn't argue with that mean man. Slowly, she began to feel down and wondered if her situation was worse than she imagined, and if she was truly useless. Suddenly, Injin responded bluntly and said yes, that she was useless, which completely shocked her. He pointed out that he agreed with what Maimo said, and that it was spot on. Amo gripped her boots tightly from what she was hearing, and Injin added that she should just sit there, accept everything that had been said, and melt into a puddle of tears. If that happened, he said, she'd finally experience discouragement. Upon hearing that, Amo immediately shifted her perspective on what Injin said and realized what he meant by it. As he left her behind, Injin added that if it was all too much for her, then she should stand up and prove to him how wrong he was for calling her useless. If she could do that, he said, then she would experience vindication. After Injin left, we cut to Ryo and Rudo's situation, where they were still being relentlessly chased by the vital instruments of the puppeteer performers. As he ran and looked at them, Rudo thought to himself that he couldn't just destroy other people's vital instruments so easily. He thought that if he had to neutralize them, he would need to break their chokers. Ryo noticed something among their pursuers and nervously commented that she had forgotten those people were also wearing chokers. It turned out that what she saw was the twin members of the South Branch Cleaners, now also under Maimo's control. Excited, Maimo asked the two of them if they could neutralize their own friends, while calling them the Twin Cleaners. Two small humanoid creatures resembling wooden toy figures were shown resting in their palms. As they held them, the two introduced themselves as being from the Cleaners Team Danger. This caught the attention of Rudo and Ryo, who peeked over at the scene. The twin brothers looked identical, and the older one introduced himself as Otto Adoroy, while the younger was A-Part Adoroy. Maimo chimed in, saying that conflict within a group was the ultimate form of entertainment. According to him, veteran cleaners knew exactly how powerful those two were. A flashback followed, returning to the Cleaners HQ. Follow was seen lying exhausted on the floor after intense training, while Rudo, curious about the names of the cleaner teams that had been mentioned, asked about the one called Danger. He wondered what that team was like. This made Zanka and Injin pause to think, before they both responded in unison with Solitary. Zanka was stunned to realize they had said the exact same thing at the exact same time. Injin explained further, saying the reason cleaner givers worked in teams was because they operated in polluted zones where no other people were around. Teamwork was one of the few ways to ensure survival. But for the team known as Danger, teamwork became a burden, like a shackle. Rudo was confused by the contradiction in that statement. Zanka elaborated that they were individuals who lacked decent human social skills and had no ability to cooperate. Givers whose powers weren't really suited for working with others. Those who were too difficult even for the cleaners to manage were placed in danger. They were a group, but not really a team. They were the strongest among the cleaners, and they're all lone wolves. He personally found that infuriating. That realization made Rudo think. These were actually the most powerful members of the cleaners. However, Oniii-Chan then reconsidered, realizing that solitary might not fully apply to the twins. Zanka added that, in a way, they were solitary, both in terms of their instruments and their powers. What you saw was exactly what you got. Simple as simple can be. Teamwork meant exclusively for just the two of them. Back to the doll festival. It became clear that the small doll-like figures earlier resting in their palms had now gradually grown in size. Rudo grew concerned upon seeing them transform into giant humanoids with tails, a two-man battle unit. The cleaners, after all, weren't organized to fight against other people. Their enemies were trash beasts, which meant they never held back in combat. If that was the case, said Mimo, then a cleaner who didn't hold back while fighting humans could only be described as a monster. He smiled, pleased to have control over them. The twins then demonstrated their power by suddenly swinging their massive giants at the platform where Rudo and the others stood. The stage suffered massive damage, with the force of the blow even reaching the bleachers. Rocks flew everywhere, and Rudo and Rio barely managed to dodge and escape. Mimo, inside the ball who had rolled to the side, was alarmed upon realizing that his stage had been completely destroyed. The two giants continued moving in sync, unleashing devastating destruction with every action. From a distance, Zanka watched their strength with growing concern. This wasn't good. Oniii-Chan also began thinking through the situation. The ones now facing the twins were Rudo and Rio, and it was obvious they still hadn't figured out how to handle them. With so many people around, the broken chunks of stone were already hitting some of the humans there, and the twins didn't look like they could be stopped. Their vital instruments mirrored their every movement. Once again, the twins stood up and made a series of coordinated hand gestures, then dropped to their knees and assumed a stance. And with a simple step forward, chunks of the stadium once again went flying as the surrounding area was reduced to rubble. They issued a challenge, daring them to come closer. Mimo was absolutely delighted, saying that they were taking this seriously. If they wanted to stop those giants, he recommended destroying their vital instruments. There was no time to hesitate just because they didn't want to damage them. And if they didn't have any trash they could turn into a weapon, he urged them to look around, because everything there was trash now. All around, the wounded bodies of civilians could be clearly seen. He encouraged them to use their powers and give it everything they had. It wasn't fair, he said, that only the info broker got to witness this. He wanted to see a big one too. And if possible, he wanted to take control of it himself. His facial expression suddenly changed as he said that, prompting Felix to warn him that he was starting to lose the image of a calm and collected ruler. Rudo then called him a stupid turd face. He declared that he wasn't going to destroy anyone's vital instrument, nor would he show him any so-called big one. Most of all, he had no intention of granting that creep's wishes, because his weapon was already there with him. His aura suddenly transformed as he declared that it was right there. August, alarmed by what he saw, immediately ran toward him in a hurry. The scene shifted to a flashback where Rudo looked puzzled upon seeing a dog. August immediately protested, saying he was wrong. It wasn't a dog, it was a wolf. Upon hearing that, Rudo admitted he didn't even know what a wolf was. August explained that it was an impressive animal that had already gone extinct. He added that he made that for the doll festival back when he was 13, but a neighborhood bully ruined it. Now, the lower jaw was completely gone. And just so he knew, that jacket was made from leftover scraps of the first fabric he ever cut. He couldn't bring himself to throw them away, so he kept them stored for over 10 years. He told Rudo he could just smell the aroma of the dresser drawer. As for the boots, he explained that he once tried to melt down metal and drip it onto them to attach studs, which ended up making them ridiculously heavy. He said he would never forget that experience. It taught him the importance of reducing weight. He sewed it all so that it would fit Rudo. Proudly, he declared that he designed everyone's costumes for the Doll Fest based on his outfit. So he asked what Rudo thought of it, and if it really looked cool and fresh. Rudo couldn't believe what he was hearing. All those things actually held meaning for August. He asked if he was really sure it was okay for him to wear it. August fell silent. But then his sibling Aishia spoke up, revealing that Augie had mentioned wanting Rudo to be the one to wear it. August hadn't expected that, and quickly tried to calm his sibling down. But Aishia continued, explaining that August knew he was someone who could find meaning in anything, and because of that, he wanted to use as many treasures as he could for his costume. August screamed in embarrassment, yelling that Aishia shouldn't have said all that in front of Rudo. Now he had no choice but to confess that he even gave him the first pair of underpants he accidentally pooped in. Aishia was stunned and asked what exactly he had made Rudo wear. August crossed his arms and explained that if the worst were to happen, he knew it would ease his mind to know he was carrying something he could turn into a weapon. However, if he had to lug around a backpack or anything similar, it would only ruin the entire design. That's why he gave him permission to turn those clothes into weapons. He knew Rudo would use them with love, and when they stepped out, they would make a massive impact. He wouldn't let his memories go to waste. And so, Rudo had finally weaponized the custom-made costume August had crafted for him. With no hesitation, he charged straight toward the two giant opponents they were up against. Mayamo scratched his head, realizing that the outfit Rudo had been wearing all along was basically trash. That comment irritated Rudo, who quickly snapped back that it wasn't trash at all. These were important things, items filled with memories and love. He thought to himself that he always believed only discarded, broken things could be turned into weapons. But Rudo corrected that assumption, insisting that Mayamo's research was lacking. His 3R bring out the full value of an item. The more love that was poured into something, the more explosive its power became. With that, Rudo began to resemble a wolf as he launched an attack powered by the outfit he wore. And in a flash, he vanished from sight. The giants, the twin opponents, and Mayamo were all stunned that he had suddenly disappeared. But Rudo had actually zipped past them and slammed into the wall behind, coughing from the impact. They all turned toward him in surprise. Rudo admitted that he may have overdone the speed a little. August was amazed. He recalled how he'd told Rudo that the drips of melted metal he'd added to attach the studs made the boots heavier. He always emphasized to him the importance of reducing weight, and Rudo had applied that principle and used it for speed. August was absolutely thrilled. Rudo was exactly the kind of person he wanted to wear his creations. As soon as he got back on his feet, Rudo glared intensely and locked eyes on his target. From where he stood, he prepared himself and launched another attack toward the twins, who were still under Mayamo's control. Mayamo scoffed, saying what Rudo had done was too simple. What was the point of increasing his speed like that? There was no way he could destroy their vital instruments using such a method. To the twins, it was like they were swatting a fly. Mayamo shouted for them to prepare as he eagerly waited to see what would happen next. Rudo was now barely visible due to how fast he was moving as he dashed toward the two giants. He zipped underneath them, drawing the attention of one, who tried to smash him with a fist. Rudo narrowly dodged the strike. But then he looked up, only to see the other giant's foot already raised, ready to crush him. As it slammed down, the ground cracked beneath it. Yet Rudo still managed to escape, sprinting up the giant's leg and leaping from its shoulder. The other giant, using its tail, attempted to snatch and strike him. But catching Rudo wasn't easy. He spun rapidly around both giants, moving so fast that their heads had to follow his movement. The Adoroi twins looked at each other, then made the decision to clasp hands. In perfect sync, the twins moved together, and so did their giant dolls. Just like Rudo, the giants began spinning continuously, trying to trap him. When they stopped, a powerful explosion erupted in the area. Otto and A-Part suddenly froze. Something had changed. Rudo had done something. They no longer moved. Rudo explained that he never intended to target their vital instruments in the first place. Mayamo's rule only works through the chokers around their necks. That was exactly what Rudo had aimed for, and after removing them, he remarked on how simple the idea was. He added that without a choker, they were no longer under Mayamo's so-called rule. The giant dolls they controlled suddenly froze in place, their heads bowed low. Rudo asked if he was right about that. Meanwhile, the twins remained silent and motionless. After a moment, the first word they uttered was skidoosh, which confused Rudo. They repeated that word over and over again, almost as if protesting. with a blazing determination and intense spirit in their voices. Rudo didn't expect that kind of energy from them as they chanted and stomped on the ground. They declared that at last, they were free from the evil rule, Skadoosh. Overjoyed, they thanked Rudo, saying it was a pleasure to meet him. The older brother introduced himself as Otto, and the younger as Eparta. They said it was a pleasure to Skadoosh his acquaintance. Rudo stood silently, bewildered by how every sentence they said ended with Skadoosh. He muttered that their personalities were overwhelming. Maybe he should have just put their chokers back on. But the twins said this was their normal state and that he should give it a hug. Rudo tried to explain the current situation to them, but they stopped him, saying there was no need. Otto explained that even while under Mimo's control, they had remained fully conscious. Eparta added that they understood everything completely. Otto swore, saying he wanted to crush that guy with an iron fist. But his brother pointed out that an ironclad barrier was in the way. Otto added that Mimo was just manipulating everything from his safe little panic room. Eparta then asked how Rio was doing, and Rudo pointed over to where she was sitting quietly to the side. Otto suggested they could free everyone from Mimo's control by removing their chokers. But his brother countered that it would be a pain. Otto agreed, it wasn't worth the effort. That kind of tedious work just wasn't for them. So instead, they said, they'd just deliver the iron fist to Mimo themselves. But Otto pointed out again that it was inside the ironclad barrier. Frustrated, the two of them groaned and muttered frick. Rudo didn't even know how to respond anymore. But the twins had already made up their minds. Alongside their giant dolls, they would clean up all the big guys around them. They declared at the start of the Skadoosh festival. They prepared to fight. And in Rudo's mind, he realized, so this was the infamous Team Danger. He didn't think he could handle this. Under the control of the Adoroi twins, their giant dolls moved into action to crush their enemies. They told Rudo it was best to step back and just watch carefully. Their unique technique could never be replicated from under another's rule. The twins held hands like they were about to dance and initiated their synchro style. Their giants mirrored the pose, and together they unleashed the omnidirectional cross Skadoosh. With one of the twins using his legs to strike the enemies, the other spun around to build momentum. It wasn't long before both of them were spinning in sync as they launched their attacks. Their opponents stood no chance. In just a few moments, they were all taken down effortlessly. As the twins stopped, Rudo was stunned by what he had just witnessed, and even he ended up muttering Skadoosh. The twins happily responded, "Festival." They were extremely proud of themselves until they suddenly remembered. They still had to remove the chokers from the others. They looked around, curious if anyone else was still alive. Mimo's voice came through the mic, saying that if they weren't going to participate in further in-group fighting, he asked that they leave the stage. Felix called his attention and commented that Mimo had done a fine job demonstrating the power of his rule. But as things stood, they were in a battle that had been lost from the very beginning. One by one, they would take down his dominion, one subject at a time. He thought it was probably time for Mimo to consider retreating. Mimo was stunned by the suggestion and couldn't believe what he was hearing, which worried Felix. Mimo told him to listen carefully. He had been observing how long it would take for someone to counter his rule. He said that it was human nature to rebel against being controlled, and this wouldn't be the last time someone tried to defy him. He was certain of that. So, he needed to develop a way to counter that resistance itself. And wasn't this the perfect training for that? He said that true growth happens once the rehearsals are over. He owed these cleaners his gratitude for helping him reach that point. Felix could only fall to his knees, repeatedly muttering frick. He hadn't realized just how wise Mimo truly was. He had carelessly suggested that they turn around and flee, and now he was embarrassed by it. Mimo then commented on how filthy Felix's mouth was. He added that the choker maker, Gauntis, might not be of use to him for much longer. He would need to look for a potential new tool. He simply smiled at the thought. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to show Amo walking quietly behind Fu. According to Mimo, cleaners were givers who just kept on giving. Then, Mimo suddenly tingled and paused, having noticed something. He spoke to Felix and declared that the time had finally come to test just how ironclad his barrier truly was. A zoom in on Rio's eyes followed as Mimo said that those eyes belonged to a beast thinking about how to break open the tortoise shell. Rio simply sat there, holding her scissors, staring intently at them. Felix, deep in thought, wondered if Rio truly believed she was a predator. He vowed that he would crush her, her fangs, and everything else about her. While the twins were busy removing the chokers from the people nearby to free them from Miyamo's control, Rio remained silent, seated in one corner. She was staring intently at Felix's Carta, his vital instrument. Quietly, she shrunk her scissors, the Ripper, and began contemplating every possible method to break that ironclad barrier. She tried to cut it, but it didn't work. In her thoughts, she realized the shell was even harder than she'd expected, especially with spherical objects. If there wasn't even the slightest notch or cut anywhere, there was nothing for her scissors to grip onto. If she forced it, her scissors would only land a hit for less than a second before failing. She didn't think anyone would suddenly charge at her. Probably not. And if they could still move, they wouldn't be staying in one place like that. She suddenly gave the orb a push using her scissors when an explosion erupted. This caught her attention. Rio looked toward the scene. Zanka's battle was still ongoing. A huge number of balls were flying around, and Zanka leapt with his lovely assist staff to dodge and slice them apart one by one. From above, he aimed precisely at every ball that followed him. Upon landing, he was met with Gil, who stood silently holding her baseball bat. Zanka shot her a sharp glare as she asked how long he can keep this up. The balls, she pointed out, weren't targeting his weapon. They had been ordered to hit him directly. Once Gil gave them that command, she no longer had control over them. And sure enough, the balls were visibly trailing him now. Gil added that the balls were determined to strike some part of his body, and they won't stop following him until they do. And from where she stood, the balls all surged toward him. The sheer force of the barrage shattered the ground beneath Zanka's feet. The balls didn't let up. They continued to pursue him relentlessly. However, one of the balls was suddenly seen split clean in half, and Zanka remained standing. The broken ball dropped right in front of him, leaving Gil momentarily speechless. Zanka remarked that clearly, those weren't balls anymore. Several of them were now stuck to the edges of his lovely assist staff. That meant Gil's power wouldn't work anymore. Gil called him a little jerk. He had casually sliced through high-speed projectiles, something no ordinary person could manage. One by one, the balls that had latched onto Zanka's vital instrument fell off. Gil added that Zanka was one of those irritating elite kids, the type who claimed they didn't study, yet still got perfect scores on the exam. It annoyed her. Zanka then asked if she was finally running out of balls. "What a shame," he said. "It made for a good training session." But Gil replied that she never ran out of balls. She unzipped her jester hat, which functioned like a bag where she stored a large number of baseballs and other round objects to use as ammunition for her vital instrument. She declared that her vital instrument, Gilmoro, could turn any spherical object into a breaking ball. One by one, the balls tumbled out. Gil explained that as long as she still had energy, the fun wouldn't stop. She was just about to start launching her attacks when someone suddenly remarked that it was great. In an instant, the Carta appeared before her, the very shield enclosing Felix and Miyamo. Gil hadn't anticipated that, and before she could react, the Carta was already in contact with her bat. Right behind her, Rio appeared and announced that she'd take the mound and throw the pitch. Zanka was caught off guard by Rio's sudden arrival, and by then, the Carta had already transformed into a massive breaking ball upon colliding with Gil's bat. Zanka yelled, asking Rio what she was thinking, as the huge ball was now headed straight for him. Felix, inside the Carta, turned to Gil and demanded to know what she was doing. Flustered, Gil insisted it wasn't her fault. They were the ones who suddenly showed up in front of her. Rio then told Zanka to hold his position. She stepped forward, scissors in hand, saying she would slice through it. She asked Zanka to support her from behind. In response, Zanka slammed his lovely assist staff into the ground with all his strength and warned her not to mess this up. As the massive ball approached, Rio braced herself and blocked it with the Ripper. The sheer velocity and force behind the ball were overwhelming. Inside the ball, Felix couldn't believe that she had deliberately let the situation spiral this far because she couldn't get a proper grip midair. He admitted it was a reckless choice. If Rio's scissors shattered, the combined force of Gil's attack and his barrier would flatten them like roadkill. He declared that his letters were absolutely unbreakable. He shouted that his feelings, the strength of his love, could never be overcome by anyone. But Rio responded that in that case, she could cut through it. She claimed that love, when too strong, was easier to fracture. And sure enough, she smiled as a crack appeared the moment her scissors made contact. Felix's eyes widened in shock. Rio asked if he could see it now, and it was true. At last, she had succeeded in cracking the so-called invincible shield, all thanks to Rio's clever move. A flashback began, showing someone who had sought out and approached Countess Nock, and it was none other than Mayamo himself. He smiled at him and asked if he liked being in high places. Countess's eyes were shown as he looked up at Mayamo, reflecting the moment he laid eyes on him again and how much he had changed since then. His hair color had changed, and dark eye bags hung beneath his eyes. Signs of aging and exhaustion were etched into his appearance. From where he sat, his frail body was clearly visible. Blood bags hung around the room, with tubes running from both of his arms. Countess spoke faintly, saying that she broke through. He was referring to the moment when Felix's Carta had been split in two, a devastating event that caused massive destruction across the area. The ground itself had been torn apart by Rio's scissor strike. She had sliced it cleanly down the middle, something Gil had never expected. Shocked and panicked, she nervously asked whether her salary would be reduced because of it. Suddenly, a powerful blow struck the back of her neck, sending her crashing to the ground. It was Zanka, who had finally defeated her. Zanka reasoned that her type always tries to pull some superfluous garbage after the fact. He said it would be better to just tie her up. At the same time, the letters meant for Felix were blown into the air. With trembling hands, he desperately tried to catch and save them. Falling to his knees, he realized the letters had been torn and shredded beyond repair. He froze, overwhelmed by a storm of emotions. A memory suddenly surfaced, a scene of a car crashing into a building, and in his hands was the final letter from his late wife. His shield had completely crumbled. Rio stood silently before him, and even then, concern was visible on her face. As Felix gathered the scattered pages, he told her not to pity him. When he had lost the love of his life, it was only the words of his lord Mayamo that had saved him. And now, he declared that he would become Mayamo's shield. Felix rose to his feet and said that even if the letters were now broken and torn apart, as long as he himself remained unbroken, he would continue on as Mayamo's shield. Burning with rage, he declared that Rio could try to cut it into 1,000,000 tiny pieces, but she would never shake the foundation of his unwavering love. This time, he swore to protect his loved one from any harm. And with that, he challenged Rio Reaper to come forward and attack. Because of that, without any hesitation, Rio kicked Felix straight in the head. She grumbled that Felix was irritating. And with just that single blow, Felix dropped to the ground and lost consciousness instantly. Rio was caught off guard when she realized that Mayamo was no longer there. She wondered where he could have gone. Back at the place where Countess was, someone called his name. A voice spoke from the radio speaker, mentioning 20 years. It had taken that long for his chokers to fully replace the old communicators. The voice recalled that when he first met him, he was filled with ambition, desperate to climb higher in the world, until the day came when he decided to stop. He remarked that it was a smart decision to time his rebellion precisely at a moment when he was beyond the reach of his rule. Mayamo had made sure that when the audience was turned into puppets, he would not be included among them. But that plan had backfired. A scene was then shown of Mayamo asking Felix how far his dominion extended, and Felix replied that it was the same as the range of his normal ability. He ruled over everything within the reach of his microphone's sound. In short, he had authority over the entire festival venue. Mayamo had been pleased with that answer. However, Countess had never told him that the cleaners would be coming to the Doll Fest. It must have taken considerable effort to hide that information from him. After all, Mayamo had ordered him to report everything, every single piece of intel he gathered through the chokers. Now, Mayamo began to wonder if Countess had developed a resistance to his commands after receiving so many. Countess finally spoke, telling him to cut the roundabout talk. He knew Mayamo had come to ask a favor, hadn't he? All of Mayamo's defenses had been defeated. The resistance against his rule had begun. Countess knew Mayamo would eventually come to him once the tides of battle started to shift. Mayamo always resorted to the same methods whenever he could no longer give commands. Countess knew he would use one of his weaknesses to threaten and coerce him into obedience. But now, Countess said, he no longer had any weaknesses. His family, his freedom, even his dignity, Mayamo had taken all of it. He had stripped away everything from him. All of his weaknesses had already been exhausted, and now, Miyamoto's words no longer held any power over him. He declared that this wasn't a rebellion. This was revenge. He had already passed the baton to Rudo. He was free to kill him now if wanted, but his revenge would continue without interruption. The curtain would close on Miyamoto's rule, and he can drop dead along with it. However, Miyamoto suddenly mentioned the name to Lily. Just hearing the name made Gachiakuta freeze in terror. Miyamoto said he understood that she was a long-time and beloved friend of his, the very first person he had gifted a choker to. With nothing left to say, Gachiakuta lowered his head. Miyamoto added that it must have taken tremendous effort to hide her from him. But the moment he saw Rudo and recognized the reward he'd received from Lily, he was convinced. And now, he said he had one final task he wanted him to carry out. One final job he wanted him to do for him. He knew how much pain he had endured just to protect Lily, and at those words, Gachiakuta could not stop himself from sweating in nervousness. A flashback appeared of his childhood. He had overheard people saying that he would never reach adulthood. They pitted him, saying he had been born with a weak heart, and that both of his parents had died from the same disease. They said he would never be able to run, or even truly grow up. Gachiakuta had heard all of this from his grandfather and grandmother. According to them, the only thing that could now bring peace to the child's heart was that necklace bearing the Surbrek logo. His body had no future. A plate shattered while he was eating, and his drink spilled as he suddenly collapsed onto the floor. Clutching his aching chest, drenched in sweat, he thought that the only thing giving his life meaning was pain itself. His grandmother hurried over to help him, since he could no longer move and lay sprawled on the ground. He had no choice but to cry, yet he told himself he was lucky, because at least he had something he could hold on to. He grabbed the necklace he was wearing. The next scene showed him already lying in his bed. Sunlight streamed in through the window of his room. He remembered the day his family had given it to him. His father had said that he got it from a friend. It was a possession of the Surbrek family. He told him to hold it whenever the pain became unbearable, but he also warned him that he must never give it to anyone who was not part of the Surbrek family, because it would not be kind to just anyone. As he lay there, he remembered what he had learned. To those who were fulfilled, it acted as a poison. To those who were empty, it brought peace. And to its master, it offered a choice. As he reflected on it, he realized his father had been right. Whenever he touched that necklace, it distracted him just a little, easing his pain. Just like earlier, the moment he held it, he felt calmer. He slowly sat up and looked out his window. Staring into the emptiness beyond, he thought about how it distracted him from the void he felt because he could not see the world. He was trapped in that place every day. Yet as he remembered all the times he had struggled, when his chest tightened and he could do nothing, he could not stop himself from crying and thinking about when he would finally die. As tears streamed down his cheeks, unable to stop them, someone suddenly sat on the chair just outside his window. The young girl who had just taken a rest there seemed relieved. Gachiakuta looked up and noticed her while still in the middle of his emotional moment. He quickly pulled his hand back and leaned away in surprise when he saw her. As the girl realized she'd been seen, she peeked back. She stood up right away, apologizing and saying she didn't realize anyone was there. Gachiakuta wiped the tears from his eyes as the girl apologized again, saying she had just sat there without asking for permission. She pleaded for forgiveness, explaining that she was simply tired and sat there without thinking. She then greeted Gachiakuta and introduced herself. However, her stomach suddenly growled loudly, so loud that Gachiakuta clearly heard it. Concerned, Gachiakuta looked at her, while the girl, now flustered and embarrassed, introduced herself as Lily. Moments later, they invited her inside and offered her a meal. That day, she joined them at their dining table. Gachiakuta silently watched her as his grandmother commented on how pitiful it was for a child to be left all alone and starving. She told her to go ahead and eat as much as she wanted. Lily couldn't believe she was being allowed to eat such food. Gachiakuta grandfather laughed and said he couldn't possibly let a child go hungry, even if she wasn't family. So, she was welcome to eat as much as she liked. Lily was overjoyed. She felt glad they didn't see her as some kind of intruder. Gachiakuta, meanwhile, simply watched her quietly from the side. Lily ate happily beside him, clearly enjoying the food. As Gachiakuta looked at her, he thought to himself that maybe it felt nice to be so full of life. But at the same time, he wished Lily would leave. He wanted silence. He wasn't feeling well. His grandmother reminded Lily to be careful while eating, as her mouth was already full and there was food in her hair as well. They also commented on how beautiful and white her hair was. To keep her bangs from getting dirty, she offered to lift them out of the way while she ate. However, when her bangs were brushed aside, they saw the truth she had been hiding. Her face was battered. Both her eyes were blackened, signs of having been beaten badly. Countess's grandparents were immediately alarmed. Even he hadn't expected to see that. A few days later, Lily once again rested on the chair outside Countess's window. Countess commented that she had been visiting almost every day lately. He asked if Lily's parents weren't worried about her. With her back turned, Lily answered that they weren't, because they were no longer around. Countess was caught off guard when Lily added that they always used to tell her she was too noisy. They got mad at her many times, until eventually, they abandoned her in a trash heap. But because she was alone, she worked hard and did everything she could to find her way back home. And her house was already empty. She added that if she was too noisy, then she wouldn't come back anymore. Countess glanced over at Lily's back, quietly listening. He thought that even if he himself had no future, at least he had a home. He had his grandparents. He felt pity for Lily and her story, so he told her that his grandparents were always smiling whenever Lily came by. That's why he invited her to visit anytime she wanted. Turning away, Countess reflected that he once believed his frozen heart would simply vanish into the void without ever thawing. But unfortunately, he had come to realize that when a heart connects with someone else, even one like his could start to feel warmth. Lily turned to him and smiled, touched by the invitation. In Countess's mind, he believed one couldn't afford to be ruled by emotions or impulses. That was how life had to be lived, especially when one's lifespan was limited. On another day, Lily was shown practicing how to read while in Countess's room. She was trying to read about clowns and magic. Even though she stuttered and struggled, Countess praised her, saying she was gradually improving in both reading and writing. Still, he couldn't help but wonder why she only chose books about clowns and magic. Lily replied that she thought it would be fun if a clown could actually use magic. In Countess's thoughts, it was impulse that triggered shortness of breath. And lately, there was a question that had been bothering him. After they left his room, Lily noticed a staff, the walking cane used by Countess's grandmother. She was shocked and couldn't believe what she saw. She asked if it was the wand of a sorcerer. Countess explained that it was just his grandmother's cane. But Lily wondered out loud. Did that mean the reason his grandfather was always smiling was because his grandmother could use magic? Countess hadn't expected that question or the conclusion she drew from it. His grandmother, on the other hand, just laughed. She played along and said that yes, it was her magic wand, and that she could see Lily had the potential to become a real wizard someday. Lily was stunned by what she heard. Countess's grandmother added that perhaps she could entrust the wand to her care. She handed it to Lily, who was completely taken aback. She couldn't believe it and was overwhelmed with joy. Back to the question troubling Countess. He was curious how Lily could smile the way she did. In his thoughts, he felt that there was no light in the world she grew up in, and so he couldn't understand how it was possible. It was a mystery to him. Suddenly, his grandmother shouted his name because Countess had collapsed again, falling hard to the floor as his chest tightened. He was struggling to breathe. "Hold on," his grandmother said, rushing to get his oxygen mask. Countess no longer knew what to do. He simply clawed at the floor and cried from the pain. Once again, he wondered, how could Lily do it? Suddenly, someone held his hand as he lay there. It was Lily, who stayed by his side. She remained with him, looked into his eyes, and told him that she was right there for him. Then she called his name. At that moment, Countess froze. He was stunned to realize that the air now entered his lungs more easily than before. Once again, the thought crossed his mind. He wanted to know how she could smile like that. When he had recovered, Lily got up to head home. However, Countess's grandmother called out to her. It was getting dark, she said. It might be better if she stayed and slept over for the night. In fact, if she wanted to, she could live with them permanently. Lily turned around and thanked them, but she said she was okay. If she didn't go home, bugs would take over her house. And so, she bid them goodbye and left, carrying the cane that Countess's grandmother had given her. Countess simply watched her as she walked away. In his thoughts, he believed that if he asked Lily, She would surely talk about her life and her struggles. As he held his oxygen mask, he quietly wondered what truly lay in Lily's heart. It was as if he could hear it, but he couldn't understand it. That's why, he thought, he wanted to know. Just then, his necklace clicked. And the moment Gachiakuta wished to understand Lily, the necklace suddenly granted him the ability. Something strange happened to the oxygen mask he was holding. When he thought about wanting to hear Lily's true voice, the cord of his mask transformed, turning into a choker. He would later come to call that moment an impulse. His grandparents were shocked by what they had witnessed. Even Lily turned to look, surprised by the sudden change. Without hesitation, Gachiakuta approached her and handed her the choker. And in his heart, he realized the first impulse he had ever felt in his life had made him a giver. When Lily returned home, carrying Gachiaku's grandmother's cane, she was thrilled with her gift. She said it was incredibly cool. It was not a phone, yet she could still hear his voice through it. She did not even know he was a wizard too. Gachiakuta spoke to her through it and told her that he had become a giver. He said he never expected something like that to happen to him. But after the first wave of excitement faded, he felt stunned. Those who became givers were people who held deep emotions and powerful desires. It meant that he had never truly been empty after all. As he read his book, he realized that he still had something he wanted, and perhaps the necklace had granted that wish. While he stared at it, Lily's voice came through, saying that now, because of this, they could be together whenever they wanted. Gachiakuta blushed when he heard that, while Lily sounded delighted. In his heart, he understood. This was what impulses were. They were what made breathing difficult. He could not hide the flutter he felt in that moment. Several hours later, while Gachiakuta was asleep, he began to hear sounds. He was puzzled by the noise. Half awake, he realized a voice was coming from his necklace. His eyes widened when he recognized it as Lily's voice. He panicked as he realized what that meant and wondered if there was a way to turn it off for privacy. Then he heard Lily sobbing as she called out for her mother. Gachiakuta froze when he heard her asking why her mother still had not come home. That was when he finally understood why Lily always made sure to return home every day. As she lay there, she could not stop crying from longing for her mother. It was as if she were dreaming, desperate to see her parent again. Even though she had no proper place to sleep and nothing and no one left in her house, she still returned there, waiting for her mother. Gachiakuta realized that Lily wanted to stay connected to her parents. That realization startled him awake. If he focused, he could hear her. He held his necklace and thought that now he finally understood the answer he had been searching for. Lily's smiles were not just for others. She smiled to make herself feel better too. It was her way of fighting back. As he lay there in his room, he could still hear Lily crying in her sleep. He realized that merely hearing her was not enough. He could not reach her that way. So he called out Lily's name, telling her that he was there for her and that he would be her home. Even though they were far apart, in different places, he felt that he reached her. Back in the present, Gachiakuta broke into tears as he realized that his true wish and his true power was to reach everyone who wore the chokers he had created, opening the doors to their hearts. A massive surge of energy erupted from the necklace he wore, the one that connected to all the chokers he had made. It drew out their thoughts and voices and sent them straight into their souls. And just as he realized it, everyone at the doll festival who wore one of his chokers was now connected to him. But Mayamo only smiled and said that he would gladly make use of that power. While Gachiakuta sat quietly, the power of the Watchman series necklace he wore allowed him to reach the emotions of every person present who wore one of his chokers. However, Mayamo still controlled them using his voice and microphone. But Rudo, who wore the choker given to him by Lily, connected directly to Gachiakuta. In that moment, he was transported, and it was as if he had come face to face with the choker maker he had been searching for all this time. Gachiakuta was seated on the same chair where young Lily used to rest, just outside their house. Rudo was visibly stunned upon seeing him for the first time. Gachiakuta spoke calmly, saying that he was reaching out to the people wearing chokers he had created. He was opening a window into their hearts, creating a pathway through which their thoughts and voices could be delivered straight into their souls. That, he said, was his true power. He looked at Rudo and shared that the power of his vital instrument was connect. Then he called out his full name, Rudo Surbrek, and said that he had sent him all of his thoughts and memories. And from the look of it, Rudo had received them. Meanwhile, Rudo remained in shock as he stared at him. He couldn't believe that this was Gachiakuta. the choker maker. Gauntis then asked him if the place was beautiful. It was peaceful, he said, and time flowed slowly here. This, he added, was his hometown. He explained that he had opened the door to the hearts of everyone at the Doll Fest who wore a choker, but Rudo was the only one he entrusted with his memories. As he looked at Rudo, he quietly apologized for placing that burden on him. He knew it was a heavy thing to carry. Pain was visible in his eyes. He admitted that it was all born from his own greed. Back when Mimo first met Gauntis, he asked the boy if he liked high places. Gauntis only glanced at him while sitting outside their home. Mimo insisted that climbing to high places made one feel as if they held the whole world in their hands. In other words, it gave the perspective of ancient rulers. He said he'd heard whispers about how Gauntis had created a new form of communication device suited for the modern age. And if they distributed that to the masses, there was no doubt the world would belong to them. Mimo reached out his hand and introduced himself by name. He encouraged Gauntis to ascend to the summit with him. When Rudo saw that memory, he muttered that Gauntis had been deceived. That was all there was to it. Mimo made it seem like it would help the people who raised him. But Gauntis admitted it was more than that. He wanted even more. What he truly desired was time. A machine embedded in his body was then shown. Mimo spoke to Gauntis, who was lying in a hospital bed, and said it was a miracle he had survived for that long. But now, his suffering was over. Thanks to the wonders of modern medical technology, funded directly by Mimo, he had been freed from his pain by the artificial heart corneos. A surgical scar could be seen running down the center of his chest. Mimo congratulated him. At last, he said, Gauntis was free. From that day forward, he wanted him to run freely, eat freely, and even earn freely. Because of that, Gauntis claimed he had been blessed with happiness that was given to him by the devil himself. He could now run, something he had never been able to do before. His suffering was the price he paid, but now, he was free. So he decided on his next goal. With his vital instrument, he began making countless chokers. With Mimo's support, he said he would use those chokers to become wealthy. He made them, and Mimo was the one who secretly distributed them. In an instant, the chokers had spread throughout the area. They were sold at low prices, yet they still earned massive profits. That was how high the demand had been. Then, Gauntis paused and reflected. What he really wanted was to use the money to build a house, for Lily and for his family. In his mind, he wanted to surprise them with that home. So for now, he had to earn more. He poured everything into making chokers, his time, his effort, and his entire self. Sometimes it hurt, but when he thought of the future, he could somehow bear it. All throughout that time, Mimo remained by his side. He witnessed Gauntis' suffering, as Gauntis heard the voices of everyone wearing the chokers. Even so, he endured and kept saying that he was okay. Mimo praised him, calling him remarkable. He thought that perhaps it was the power of that necklace that gave him the strength to withstand the storm of so much information. So even though Gauntis was exhausted and in pain, he kept working. Day after day, he continued making chokers. He endured the hardship and bore the pain, working non-stop without rest. Without even realizing it, every time he opened his eyes to a new day, he sank deeper and deeper into his labor. Eventually, he stopped answering calls altogether. He no longer paid attention to what was happening around him. He shut himself inside his room, endlessly producing huge numbers of chokers from the cords he had there, all to earn more money. Because of that, he warned Rudo not to let himself be consumed by his goal. When your goal swallows you, you lose sight of what truly matters. That was the lesson he had learned. And when he finally wanted to stop, Mimo would not allow it. Gauntis could not believe it when he realized that Mimo intended to collect people's information through the chokers and broadcast it. He said his chokers were not tools meant to humiliate or expose others. But Mimo replied that there were many other ways to use them. He said Gauntis should consider using the weaknesses of those in power to elevate himself to the highest positions. But Gauntis could not accept that. He began to wonder how long Mimo had been building that plan. He asked if that was what Mimo had meant when he spoke of high places. He also noticed Mimo's strange outfit and asked about it. Mimo asked back whether the design was not impressive. He said it carried symbolism, because for a ruler, being iconic was important. Gauntis did not understand what he meant by being a ruler. So Mimo explained that the moment he heard the rumors about him, he already knew. He would begin by gathering information, and then use it to conquer the ground. He then asked Gauntis if he wanted to join him as a ruler. Gauntis firmly refused. He did not want to stain his chokers in that way, and because of that refusal, Mayamo decided to prepare a surprise for him. As punishment, he went to the family Gauntis loved and beheaded them. He took their lives and presented their severed heads on plates, showing them to him. Gauntis was horrified when he saw their lifeless bodies and heads. He no longer knew what to feel, because the very reason he had been working so desperately was gone. The people who had raised him had died before they could ever receive his surprise. Mayamo told him that because of it, he was free to focus on his work. At present, Gauntis was in distress because Lily had been taken hostage by Mayamo. He admitted that he had allowed his greatest power to fall into Mayamo's hands, but he swore he would never let that happen to Lily. Through his tears, he said he could not allow it. So he begged Rudo, sobbing as he pleaded for him to protect Lily from Mayamo. He explained that Lily's power gave her the ability to do anything, but that power came with a price. If she ever used it to harm anyone, she would die. No matter how evil Mayamo was, Lily could not fight back. For Lily, ignorance served as her shield. That was why he had never told her anything. Nothing about his situation. Nothing about the plan at the Doll Fest. Even so, he realized that he had once again been selfish. He spoke to that choker. He then lowered his head as he remembered how Lily had left before she ever noticed anything. And when it came to Mayamo, no one could predict what that devil would do. He could not hold back his tears as he said that he did not care if he had been forced by the schemes of the information broker. He declared that Rudo was now his only hope. So he pleaded with him to help him and save Lily. They needed him. Hearing those words, something ignited inside Rudo. He knew he had to act. So he prepared for battle, wearing the wolf costume that August had made for him. He told Gauntis not to worry. He assured him that he could do this. Meanwhile, outside the summit, to the south, in Shumina City, Andio, someone was watching from afar. A woman stood there, gazing toward the scene. And that woman was none other than Lily. Returning to Rudo's side, Gauntis said that goodwill is difficult to convey to others, because one could never truly know whether they were sincere. That was why he had obtained the power to open the doors to people's hearts. He wanted his sincerity to reach Lily's soul. However, he grew uneasy at the thought that if Maimo's voice were to reach a soul, that soul would degenerate. A degenerate soul would do anything to carry out the orders given to it, even to the point of reshaping its own flesh. Rudo was shocked when Gauntis mentioned reshaping flesh and asked what he meant by that. Gauntis replied that he had simply needed to speed up his timetable, that was all. He was certain that once he had control over the ground, Mayamo would use his power to carry out that order. Because of this, he said that the next step was to take everyone at the Doll Fest wearing chokers and change them into something no longer human. The connection created by Gauntis' chokers could be seen clearly, all of them being controlled by Mayamo. A vivid light suddenly appeared, drawing the attention of Rio and Zanka to it. It looked bad. Because of that opening, Felix found his chance and forcefully slammed Rio to the ground, while Zanka was kicked by Gil despite having her hands bound. Gil wanted her pay raised. With rage burning, Felix insisted that he would not allow them to stop them. The Adoroy twins, meanwhile, could not understand what was happening. Then Rudo rushed past them at incredible speed. Using his werewolf-like ability, he charged forward, unable to accept what was happening. However, Mayamo simply grabbed someone nearby who was wearing a choker and used him as a shield. Because of Rudo's overwhelming speed, instead of hitting Mayamo, he slashed the arm of the man being used. Looking back, Rudo could not believe that a civilian had been used as a shield. And it did not end there. Mayamo turned on his microphone and vital instrument, then seized the attention of everyone wearing chokers. He commanded all those under his voice to transform according to his vision of a personal army. Delighted, he declared that he would call them his apostles. Suddenly, a bullet pierced his body. His thumb was hit and severed, causing him to drop the microphone he was holding. The smile vanished from his face when he realized that the shot had also struck his vital instrument. Because of that, he turned his head to search for where it had come from. A figure was revealed at the highest point, reloading a rifle. The person aimed the gun at him again and apologized, saying it was unintentional to ruin his big scene. That person was none other than Mildreda, a supporter from the southern branch of the Cleaners. Mayamo was shocked upon seeing her, having never expected it. Once ready, She pulled the trigger again, shooting Maimo as he stood there. This time, the shot struck his knees. Upon witnessing this, Marriage was impressed, saying that as always, she was amazing. The first bullet had struck directly at the vital instrument, and the second hit both of his knees. Because of that, Maimo collapsed from where he stood and tumbled down the stairs below. He looked upward and realized that the forces of the cleaners and the Hell Guard had apparently worked together. Their comrades began marching inside. Mildreda insisted that it was all thanks to Marriage's negotiating skills. Fortunately, she said, the Hell Guard turned out to be far more understanding than she had expected. However, Maimo claimed that the audience was still under his control. From behind him, someone apologized. When Maimo turned around, it was Oniii-Chan, who said that they had just removed the very last choker from the attendees. He pulled away the choker from the man whom Maimo had used earlier as a shield. Oniii-Chan insisted that thanks to his fantastic team handling the fighting, there was nothing left for him to do except focus on the slow and boring work. The man whose arm had been severed suddenly screamed in pain, only now realizing what had happened. Oniii-Chan apologized to him and told him to let their healer take care of it. Rudo was stunned by everything that had happened and had not even noticed when they started doing that work. Someone hurriedly ran off to order the Hell Guard to begin evacuating the people. Zanka's eyes widened when he recognized who it was. It turned out to be his older brother Goka, the second in command of Hell Guard Squad 1. Oniii-Chan smiled at him and greeted him, saying that this was their first joint operation. Having someone else thinking about the boring job, he said, had really made his life better, so he thanked him and called him Mr. Hard Worker. Goka only told him to be quiet and even called him layabout. He ordered everyone to calmly evacuate the building and said they would take care of the injured. However, Oniii-Chan said that they had already assigned Aishia to heal the attendees. She would need electricity for that, but he said August could handle it. As Rudo watched the rescued people being let out, he felt relieved. Oniii-Chan and Mildreda were also observing the surroundings. Countess spoke to Rudo again and said that all of them had understood what was happening and had carried out their respective roles without needing to be told. On the other hand, as someone already an adult himself, the only thing he had done was ask Rudo to handle it. He lowered his head and said that he had no idea that Oniii-Chan, along with the Hell Guard, had already been collecting the chokers. He added that he should have noticed, but he didn't. As he watched everything unfold, Rudo realized that this was what the adults were capable of. He was impressed by how swiftly everyone moved and by the sharp, intelligent decisions they made. He replied to Countess that it was because he had never opened so many hearts at the same time. Even he himself could only see what was right in front of him. With Countess lowering his head, he noticed his necklace and grew puzzled. There was still one more person besides Rudo. The door to someone else's heart was still open. Maimo could be seen lying face down near the stairs, with many Hell Guard members surrounding him. Standing before him, Goka said that he would tell them everything, from inside his cell at the guard prison. However, as Maimo remained bowed down, Goka suddenly froze when he noticed that Maimo was wearing a choker around his leg, with blood flowing into it. At the same time, Countess told Rudo that Maimo was still connected, but it was already too late. Maimo drank his own blood from his severed thumb. Maimo insisted that the microphone was still with him and that he had never turned it off. And so, he ordered himself to take on a form beyond that of a human. Goka could not believe that he had given an order to himself. Suddenly, Maimo's body began to crack. His hair moved as he started to transform. As his body gradually changed, Rudo recalled that Maimo's power allowed him to control a target once he drank their blood. Just as Countess had said, when Maimo's voice reached a soul, it would degenerate, and that degenerated soul would remake its own flesh. Rudo could not believe what he was witnessing as the transformation happened before his eyes. Maimo truly could take on a form beyond that of a human. And through the soul manipulation power Maimo used, he assumed a new form by his own command. Maimo's form gradually changed right before the disbelieving eyes of Goka and Oniii-Chan. Shock was clearly visible in their expressions, especially on Rudo's face as he witnessed it. A mask suddenly formed over Maimo's face, and his body grew enormous, resembling a fallen angel complete with wings and even a halo. Even Felix could not believe the appearance his Lord Maimo had taken. Rio, who was also on the ground, was stunned. When Maimo, now in his beyond human form, slowly moved his head. Even Zanka and Gil froze. The sound of his movement was overwhelmingly loud. As Mildreda stared at him, she could not accept what she was seeing. When she had shot Mimo earlier, she had assumed that the microphone had been destroyed. He admitted that this had been her mistake. Because of that, she did not let the opportunity slip again and moved to fire at Mimo's new form. When she pulled the trigger and aimed at Mimo's head, the bullet did not even penetrate. Mildreda, Rudo, Injin, and Goku were all utterly shocked. His body seemed completely indestructible. With his new form, he was able to float freely and even fly. Upon noticing Mildreda, Mimo moved straight toward her. In response, Mildreda hurriedly loaded her weapon and unleashed a barrage of bullets at Mimo's body. She sprayed him with gunfire, but the bullets merely bounced off whenever they struck Mimo's new body. Mimo kept drawing closer, taking no damage at all from the shots. The Hell Guard could only look up as he passed right in front of them. Goku followed him with his eyes. Cold sweat formed on Mildreda's face as Mimo came to a stop directly in front of her at extremely close range. Mildreda still had her rifle aimed at him, but Mimo merely raised his hand. Fear was evident in Mildreda's eyes at that moment, but Injin suddenly rushed in to the rescue and stepped in front of her. Using his Umbreaker, Injin opened his umbrella to serve as a shield. However, with a single sweep of Mimo's hand, he released a shockwave that tore through the direction of that motion. Everything in its path was destroyed, and it even pierced straight through the area itself. Because of that, Injin and Mildreda were blown far away. They crashed into a kiosk set up outside and fell there, losing consciousness from the impact. Everyone else could not believe what they had just witnessed. Smoke engulfed the surroundings because of what had happened. Now facing that strange being, unlike any of the trash beasts they knew, everyone except Mildreda was slow to react. They were stunned by the situation. Goku then ordered the Hell Guard to kill it. Everyone present instinctively felt that they had to destroy it there and then. And even though it did not look easy to bring down, the Hell Guard fearlessly confronted it under Goku's command. Each of them drew their respective weapons. Various kinds of firearms were fired in its direction. However, the attack seemed to have no effect on Mimo's beyond-human form as he floated there. Goku could only stare at him. He noticed that Mimo was slowly drifting closer to him. Refusing to back down, Goku also drew his weapon and fired. Yet Mimo simply passed him by. Goku was puzzled as to why. Despite looking straight at him, Mimo continued onward. Realization struck him, and he grew alarmed. He noticed that the enemy's true target was his younger brother, Zanka. Mimo stopped in front of Zanka, who had mustered the courage to stand his ground. Goku immediately ran to his aid. As he rushed forward, he rained bullets that struck Mimo's neck and the side of his face. Still, they caused no damage. Zanka did not falter and attacked with his vital instrument, but Mimo effortlessly caught it between his fingers. Zanka could not believe it. In response, Mimo readied his fingers to flick, and when he released them, the unleashed force dealt devastating damage to Zanka, its sheer power tearing apart part of his body. The scene shifted to a flashback inside the Hell Guard headquarters. Someone said that he should not compare himself to his younger brother. That person was Kyoka, who was busy writing. Kyoka insisted that if he did not broaden his perspective, he would fail to see the lives he could save. His sibling kept his head lowered, listening quietly to the lecture. Kyoka added that this was even more true if he looked at Zanka's good qualities as something blindingly radiant. He needed to keep looking forward, because if he did not, he would not see what was right in front of him. They might not be the same, but all of them, she said, had been given good qualities equally. Zanka still needed refinement, and he still did not know how to fully defend himself. She told Goku that he was the toughest member of Nijiku, not only there, but in the entire Hell Guard. She wanted him to protect Zanka and to protect his good qualities. By using each person's good qualities as fuel, the Hell Guard became a greater flame that illuminated every corner of the ground. He should not use his qualities to ignite a flame of a lower kind. And even if the day came when Zanka left them, as one who came before him, as someone who continued to learn, and as his brother, he must never look away from him. He could not fully accept the suffering he saw his brother endure. Blood spilled as he was struck by Mimo's beyond human form. However, before Zanka could fall, something suddenly changed. Something awakened within him, and he gained renewed strength. Even though he was injured, it did not stop him from fighting back. Using his vital instrument, he swung his lovely assist staff at Maimo's face. At last, Maimo's mask cracked. Returning to what Kyoka had said to Goka, Zanka's good quality was his endless flame. It burned away his shortcomings and his innocent past. This had been shown when Zanka was defeated by Jabber. As his heart struggled to break free, it became the force that drove him to change and grow. Goka now witnessed with his own eyes the change his sister had spoken of. Bloodied as he was, Zanka managed to gather his remaining strength to confront Maimo. He shouted, saying that the vital instruments worked on him. At last, he shattered Maimo's mask. Because of that, he urged everyone to finish him off. An unwavering commitment and determination could now be seen in Zanka. At that moment, suddenly, much larger hands appeared behind Maimo's beyond-human form. They belonged to the giant doll of the Adoroi siblings. They caught him in their palms and restrained him, calling out Monster Shake as they did so. They shook him violently while he was trapped inside the giant's hands. After that, Otto pulled him in and hurled him with tremendous force as he shouted Monster Throw. As he was flung away, he was suddenly struck by the tail of the other sibling's giant while spinning. The impact was immense. Declaring Monster Fly away, he then used the tail to launch him even harder, sending him flying upward. Felix looked up in shock, growing worried for his Lord Maimo. And as he was distracted, Rio found her opening. She grabbed him from below, then slipped behind him as he struggled free. She pressed the tip of her scissors against his neck and warned that if he tried to stop them again, she would cut his life into pieces. While the twins kept watch on the Maimo they had thrown, Zanka suddenly vomited blood. He could not believe that it had happened to him again. Tears welled in his eyes as he asked why it always had to be him. His older brother Goku approached and called him pathetic as Zanka collapsed onto the ground. That, he said, was what became of a man who refused to live up to his elder sister's expectations. His excessive reliance on his vital instrument was the reason he had grown weak. Zanka could not answer him. Goku then asked whether his flame was only good for heating lukewarm water for the cleaners. He stepped closer and lifted Zanka's exhausted body, which no longer had the strength to resist. Zanka told him not to get any funny ideas, so he explained that he was only doing what Kyoka had asked him to do and that he would report Zanka's incompetence to her. Zanka did not protest anymore after that. Meanwhile, Goku told the Hell Guard that because of the Giver's attack, it was now clear that standard weapons would be ineffective. From that point on, the Hell Guard's role was to provide support and assist civilians in getting outside to safety. They responded and followed his orders. Goku then thought about how Maimo had passed right by him and fired at Zanka. He wondered if Maimo knew that they were at odds with each other. After that, he called him a despicable monster. As he walked while carrying his brother, Rudo suddenly appeared at their side. Goku merely glanced at him, while Rudo could not believe what had happened to Zanka. Goku knew that Rudo was probably worried about his friend. However, he said that it was unacceptable for a Nijiku to die over something so minor. He did not need his pity. Rudo should just focus on punching holes through the enemy, calling him Rudo Surbrek. The twins giants were already waiting for Maimo to fall. Rio suddenly moved behind them and asked whether vital instruments worked on him, and if it was a trash beast. They answered together that it did not seem like they did. When Maimo finally landed, they said that he was creepy, but it felt like they were just pummeling a human. That was their hunch. Rio smiled and grew curious, wondering if it was really human and how his microphone had turned someone into that. Maimo's voice could then be heard. As the Givers prepared themselves, the mouth on the mask of Maimo's beyond-human form slowly opened. He insisted that he now had a mouth, and that it was Zanka who had given it to him. Because of that, he thanked him. The sudden and violent attack, he said, had activated his sympathetic nervous system, so he believed it was time for him to counterattack. Outside, everyone could be seen rushing about. They were being told to mark those who were seriously injured with red. The situation there was somewhat chaotic. One person hurriedly requested treatment, while another was desperate as he searched for his child. Someone else cursed, thinking that he should never have gone to that stupid doll fest in the first place. On the other hand, the cries of a child looking for his parents could be heard. In the middle of the confusion, Aishia stood there nervously. Moments later, a man who had not noticed him collided into him and told her to get out of the way. In her thoughts, she knew she was a healer, yet she feared how people would react if she used her power on regular civilians. She recalled past experiences where others had been frightened upon learning that she healed using electricity. They were afraid they would die from it. She carried trauma from being called Electro Girl, Bionic Woman, and even a monster in the past. Because of that, she could not bring himself to offer her ability to the injured. However, someone suddenly called out to her Aishi Weishi. It was her sibling, August. August said that he had brought over the person with the most severe injuries. Their internal organs were already exposed. Aishi's eyes widened, having not expected that. August thought that the spare battery she had brought would not be enough for that case. Because of that, he suggested they just pick a random house nearby and ask if they could use an outlet. Aishia grew worried, saying that people would see it. Her sibling insisted that they were at the Doll Fest, where people came specifically to see doll givers use their vital instruments. Everyone there thought givers are A-okay. And even if anyone complained about her, August said he would just go crazy again. That's all. He encouraged her, declaring it a victory to the healers, and called her Aishi Babe. If she needed anything, he said he would get it for her himself. Aishia replied that what she needed was an extension cord capable of handling high-voltage currents. August immediately answered yup, but wondered where he could get one. Someone overheard their conversation and said that there were plenty inside the Doll Fest tent. It turned out to be Wing, a member of the Doll Festival staff. The scene then shifted to an alley nearby. Several event attendees could be seen lingering there, including Amo and Fu. Amo kept her head lowered as she recalled what had been said to her, that this was the result of a lack of experience. In that way, she would come to experience discouragement or a loss of motivation. She remembered what Injin had told her, that if things became too much for her, she should stand up. She lifted her head and realized that this was the scent of anxiety coming from a large crowd. Fatigue was evident among those resting nearby. She suddenly asked Fu whether he was strong. He replied that if he had an order, then yes. As for he, definitely yes. Amo insisted that she was weak because she still lacked experience. Fu was puzzled but agreed. However, she realized that if she didn't do something, she would never gain any more experience. Because of this, she decided that she would go back to Rudo. Fu was shocked by her decision and asked why. In his view, the area near the stage was far too dangerous. He had been ordered to bring her somewhere safe. With her back turned, Amo said that she wanted him to protect her. Was he not strong when he had an order? Fu paused and said it would be better if she used stronger words. But even though Amo wanted to tell him to leave and help the others, she could not bring herself to do so. She won't be of help anyway. She recalled the past, when she had felt excited upon learning that someone would love her, and when she was made to feel what she believed was proper love. But if she truly wanted to stop lying to herself and stand on her own feet without asking others for help, then this was her chance. She began walking out, with Fu following behind her. Amo stayed silent, deep in thought, when she suddenly noticed something at her side. She recognized the person being carried. It was Zanka, being carried by his older brother Goka. Seeing him bloodied and unconscious made her panic. She hurriedly ran toward the stage, and moments later, she spotted Injin's vital instrument beneath the tent. A supporter was already there to retrieve their injured bodies from underneath. Amo could not believe what she was seeing. She was driven even more to approach the stage to see what had happened. She peeked inside, and her eyes widened when she saw Rudo with her own eyes. He was being held by Maimo's beyond human form. He no longer seemed to have the strength to fight back and was already unconscious. All Amo could do was watch this tragedy unfold. She never imagined that the scene awaiting her would be Rudo, wounded and being carried by the enemy. He was already bloodied, looking like withered vegetables, completely limp. The words Maimo had said earlier resurfaced, that the sudden and violent attack Zanka carried out had activated his sympathetic nervous system, which was why he thought it was time to counterattack. Returning to what had happened only minutes earlier, Rudo had been deeply shaken by what happened to his friend Zanka. Because of that, his desire to bring down the enemy only intensified. However, with nothing more than a simple sweep of Maimo's right hand, the bleachers section was cleanly split straight down the middle. There was nothing the Adoroi twins giants could do except bow down to avoid it. As shattered debris flew everywhere, Maimo burst into laughter. He was overjoyed, saying that this ability was truly remarkable, far beyond what he had expected. According to him, Mere words were all that were needed to fill the weakness of his flesh. This was what he had long desired. More than psychic powers or laser beams, what he truly wanted was a body that could not be shaken. Because of that, he charged without hesitation at one of the giants. He moved swiftly and said he wanted to test drive this body first. He raised his right hand and slammed it into the giant in front of him. Otto grew alarmed when he realized it was his giant that had been hit. The impact of that simple move was so immense that both of them crashed all the way down below, creating an extremely deep crater. All Otto could do was peer down from where he stood. From Mimo's position, he then detonated the surrounding area, sending massive chunks of rock flying once more. Using his wings, he took flight again and charged forward. This time, he targeted the second giant. He passed over its shoulder at incredible speed, striking and destroying it. As he ascended into the air, he shouted that it was fantastic. He could not believe the speed and strength of his new form. He spun around like a tornado in the air, celebrating wildly. However, from below, someone suddenly rushed toward him, moving just as fast. That person leaped into the air and charged straight at Mimo's chest. It was none other than Rudo. From above, he repeatedly kicked the head of Mimo's beyond human form, landing hit after hit. He did not let that opportunity slip. Using his gloves, he grabbed the jacket he was wearing and used it as his vital instrument. Because of that, he faced the seemingly indestructible Mimo without fear. Through Rudo's actions, the fabric of his jacket gradually tore apart and turned into projectiles that he hurled at Mimo. As a result, Mimo could be seen taking damage and actually feeling it, even in his beyond human form. The fabric clung to his head, something that puzzled him. One by one, they stuck to his body, and he found himself wondering whether it was really just cloth, because he could no longer pull them free from his body. Below, August was utterly shocked when he witnessed Rudo granting the pieces of the jacket he had made for him the power of cut and paste. He even managed to turn them into extremely sharp weapons, which he used to slice through Mimo's entire body. After splitting him straight down, they were stunned to notice that Mimo had not sustained even a single scratch from it. Suddenly, Mimo released an intense burst of light, something Rudo had not anticipated. With nothing more than a simple aim of his hand toward where Rudo was, he released another shockwave, powerful enough to violently devastate the area. Rudo was driven deep into the ground, clearly suffering severe damage, to the point that he vomited blood. Mimo insisted that he knew Rudo wanted to learn the secret behind his strength. He then revealed that the first step was to ensure that his Watchman series could be used effectively. And the most important secret of all, he said, was to identify the source of a giver's power in order to truly understand it. According to him, the quality of a giver's power was based on the experience and ideology of the giver themselves. While the bloodied Rudo lay sprawled on the ground, crawling weakly, Mimo continued explaining that the strength of those powers was determined by the breadth of their experience and the firmness of their beliefs. But what, then, was the true source of a giver's power? He picked up Rudo's wounded body and shook him, asking where it really came from. An ordinary human could not defy the laws of nature. That was precisely the moment when Amo peeked in and witnessed what was happening inside. Mimo insisted that a human being was incapable of wielding that kind of transcendental power. It was impossible. He looked toward Rio, who was standing ready on the opposite side of the area, and used the massive weight of her giant scissors as an example. He asked whether they had ever thought about where that immense weight came from. Humans naturally lack the ability to increase the mass or the functions of an object. That ability was a gift handed down from ancient times. The source of all of it, according to him, was the ancient rulers. The land was filled with the energy of those ancient rulers. That energy drove human evolution forward and gave birth to the givers. He asked Rudo if he could see all of this. Rudo opened his eyes again and desperately tried to use what little strength he had left to activate his vital instrument once more. However, Mimo said that the people on this land had been tainted by the energy of the ancient rulers, and that Rudo Surbrek was no exception. His awakening as a giver had occurred immediately after he fell to the ground. The primary cause was his contact with the energy of the ancient rulers. Rudo froze just as he was about to rush forward. He simply listened in silence. A human, he said, could never advance without external stimulus. They were parasites, dependent on power that came from outside. Yet many scientists had spread the arrogant hypothesis that all of this was merely the result of human potential. That was why he needed to teach those ignorant and arrogant people a lesson. Rudo was taken aback when Mimo suddenly flew upward, carrying him along. For that purpose, he said, he had used himself as an avatar to bring about the return of an ancient ruler. An ancient ruler, or by its true name, a god. As they rose high above and looked down upon the vast expanse below, something suddenly came back to Rudo's mind. He looked back on his past, on his life with his foster father. When he was still a child, the man would read him books and teach him. Returning to the present, he found himself questioning the god Mimo had spoken of. He insisted that it was not possible for a human to become a god. That idea was incredibly stupid. When Gauntis heard this, he grew curious about what the two of them were talking about. Meanwhile, Mimo said that he already knew. The people of the heavenly sphere knew that name. Mimo squeezed Rudo's wrist with crushing force as he carried him, causing Rudo to scream in pain. Mimo demanded to know why. Why was it that spherites like him knew about gods, while groundlings knew nothing at all? Rudo continued screaming as Mimo twisted his arm. Mimo asked if Rudo had any idea how much time and energy he had devoted just to researching the name of God. Did he have any idea how much irritation and frustration he had felt because he could not fill in the gaps on those pages? That was why he wanted to know who had erased the existence of gods from the ground. He brought his face close to Rudo's and demanded an answer. Rudo insisted that he had no way of knowing. Wasn't Mimo the expert? He said, calling him a turd-faced wannabe. Mimo froze at that, then suddenly looked up, irritated. Over and over, he repeated that he should know about the gods. In his rage, he tightly gripped the microphone in his left hand, and with sheer force, he crushed the mic in his own palm. Rudo was shocked when he was suddenly released from that height. Mimo raged and abruptly spread his hands. Because of that, the jagged protrusions of the area split apart, and in an instant, they were severed. Rudo continued falling from the height he had been dropped from, but fortunately, a hand caught him. It was the giant of the Adoroi twins. They caught him so he would not crash directly into the ground. Otto grew alarmed when he noticed that Rudo's entire left arm had been shattered. As Rudo lay there, he suddenly asked if none of them knew anything about the gods. Rio, who was riding atop the giant's hat, had no idea what he was talking about. Epertes suddenly called out to them and pointed out that something bad was happening to Mimo. It was noticeable that he seemed to be losing himself. His movements had suddenly become strange. He was already weird to begin with, but this was getting worse. They began to wonder if he had a time limit, or if he had already lost control. Rudo was watching him when Gauntis suddenly said that it was because Mimo had destroyed his microphone. Normally, when a vital instrument was destroyed, its power would naturally disappear. However, at present, Mimo was borrowing power from the Watchman series to transform. By crushing the microphone, he had broken the balance of power. Now, the only power within him was coming from the Watchman series. A cunning snake like Mimo would never destroy his own vital instrument. Perhaps his mind had already been affected by playing at being a god. But Rudo said that was not the case. Mimo wanted to become a god, but he was only human. He may have researched everything he could about gods in order to imitate them, but he was still nothing more than a rotting piece of trash. They were taken aback by his words, stunned. Rudo's scars trembled as he realized it was exactly what Gauntis had once told him. When you are consumed by your objective, you lose sight of what truly matters. Mimo had been consumed by his goal and forgotten what was important. And so, Rudo decided to put an end to Mimo. However, the others said that this was already the time to surrender. Ordinary people like them, they said, stood no chance against him. On top of that, Rio pointed out that both of his arms were broken, making it impossible for him to defeat him. But he said that he still had one use left. Still, if he continued to use objects as weapons the same way he had before, he would never defeat him. He might not be a god, but he was still a new kind of being, existing on a different level compared to givers. Gauntis could not believe what Rudo was saying. Rudo wanted to combine the power of Gauntis' Watchman series with his own Watchman series in order to match that form. The scene then shifted to Mildred's point of view. As she lay sprawled on the ground, she noticed chunks of rock crashing down not far from her. She grew alarmed when she realized that this had already gone far beyond the cleaner's jurisdiction. Outside, Oniii-Chan could be seen sitting there, holding his vital instrument to shield his companion's marriage and Mildreda from the debris flying through the area. Mildreda pushed herself up into a sitting position, still confused by everything that had happened. When Marriage noticed that she was awake and was asked for a report, she said that they were near the festival tent entrance. She explained that Maimo's attack had knocked her out for nearly 10 minutes, and that Oniii-Chan was the reason they were safe. She then looked around and took in the devastated state of the surroundings. When she turned her attention back to Oniii-Chan, she was startled to see blood trickling down from his head. She grew worried for him and apologized, saying that she had messed up. Oniii-Chan replied that she had not, that he had simply been unlucky and taken a blow to the head. He added that what she did was right and that her aim had been spot on. After that, Oniii-Chan told them to start escorting the locals and the attendees out of the town. Both women were shocked by what he said. The damage the area had suffered was already extensive, and he warned that if everything went wrong, the entire city could be wiped off the map. Back inside, they still could not believe what Rudo was proposing to do, to become a being like Maimo. Countess insisted that it was impossible. Maimo had used a fragment of his Watchman series to grant himself the ability to issue commands directly to his own soul. He had become what he was as a result of merging his power with that ability. But Rudo's power, he said, could not grant the same capability. On top of that, he asked whether Rudo truly wanted to become that kind of monster. If Maimo's true goal had been to become a god, then he would not have gone through the trouble of searching for a way to return to what he once was. He emphasized that Rudo might never be human again. However, Rudo assured him not to worry. Maimo was still human, and a human did not simply stop being human. Rio sat there quietly. She thought that she did not know what a god truly was, but no normal person would look at something like that and still think it was human. Countess grew curious about how Rudo could be so certain. The moment he mentioned the word god, something about him changed. It felt as if he was speaking to someone else entirely. Rudo replied that he believed it would work in the same way a vital instrument was shifted into weapon mode. Maimo had used his power as a giver to reconstruct his body. The power to reinforce an object and transform it was something every giver possessed. Rio, Zenka, Oniii-Chan, and even he himself were capable of doing that. And now, as Countess's power opened a pathway to his soul, Rudo believed he could use his own power on himself. Rio objected and said that if he did that, then once his power was exhausted, he would disappear. She thought that they had no hope left. It was wrong to charge in without knowing what would happen. And it was not just him who would be affected, none of them there knew what would happen. No matter what he did, there was no possible way to defeat that thing. The only logical solution was a tactical retreat. However, Rudo said that if he ever started destroying everything in sight like Maimo, then he was ordering them to kill him. Rio could not believe what she was hearing. Even Countess objected. He could not accept losing Rudo just for the sake of revenge, so he refused. He said that it should be him instead, because he was the one who had brought all of this upon them. His own life no longer had any value, but Rudo still had many things left to do. However, Rudo shouted at them not to get the wrong idea. He was not going there to die. Maimo had reached that point by trampling on the things people held dear, and he would continue doing so. That was why Rudo said he would kick that turd-face ass. That's all. Rudo moved, and Countess grew uneasy. As Maimo floated in the air, he was puzzled by what he was doing. A noticeable light wrapped itself around Rudo as he carried out his plan. Countess thought he forced his revenge onto him, but he had never asked him to gamble his life like that. That made him question why. This pure, candid, yet mysterious and hard-to-read boy. Why was he unable to let go of the idea of relying on him? As Rudo slowly began to transform, Countess realized that it was not because of his strength nor his sense of justice. It was the quality that enveloped his entire being, his unwavering determination to remain faithful to his anger. After using his power, Rudo truly began to resemble a wolf. When Maimo witnessed what was happening to Rudo with his own eyes, he could hardly believe it. He recognized the form Rudo had taken and grew alarmed. As he hovered in the air, his gaze was locked onto Rudo's new pseudo-god form. It was a slender creature resembling a werewolf, with an elongated snout, a hunched body, and thick fur. Looking back to before that moment, Gachiakuta had said that he could not fully support that idea. He stated that Rudo's plan was nothing short of a suicide mission. Anything his three are turned into a weapon would inevitably be destroyed. It was not difficult to imagine what would happen to him if he used that power on his own body. If the method he used to defeat Maimo was the very thing that would destroy him, then they'll all be left with nothing. At that point, Rudo realized that Gachiakuta truly understood his powers. He thought about it and said that he did not remember ever giving Gachiakuta those details. He had only been listening through the chokers. Gachiakuta replied that he had sufficient understanding of nearly everything said by anyone wearing a choker. Rudo then asked if that knowledge went straight to Maimo. Gachiakuta lowered his head and fell silent in thought. Rudo insisted that if Maimo's orders were forcing him to share information from the chokers, then Maimo knew all of his tricks and the tricks of every giver. And now, he also possessed power of his own. If that was the kind of person they were facing, then all the more reason he had to do this. Gachiakuta had not expected that explanation. He reflected that if they continued using the same old methods, they would no longer work. That, he realized, was why Rudo had made that decision. Even so, he was deeply worried because both of Rudo's arms were already broken and only one means of using his power remained. His panic was causing him to underestimate himself. Even assuming that was not the only factor, Gachiakuta thought that he should stop Rudo. It was dangerous to continue if he was no longer capable of making rational decisions. Yet there was nothing he could do. There was no one else besides Rudo who could surpass Maimo. And in his view, they would no longer be able to defeat him. But if they did nothing, Maimo would use his power to rule the entire ground by force. And if that happened, who would be left to stop him? Gachiakuta wanted to find some kind of idea. He concentrated and focused, thinking of another way to help Rudo there. As he sat still, he questioned when he had grown accustomed to letting other people resolve his problems for him. It was not only Maimo who was holding him back. He was not the only one binding him. There was also someone who used his own captivity as an excuse to give up believing in himself. And that person was none other than himself. It was true that he could not face this directly, but he had already heard and accumulated an immense amount of information. Systems of values, possibilities, all of it had been stored in his mind. And so, he spoke to Rudo and told him to listen to him. It was time for him to pass on what he knew, and he had a plan. Returning to the present, Maimo recognized Rudo's form. He said that Rudo had taken an object and a person and fused them together. He could not believe it. That was why Rudo had become something like a werewolf, with sharp teeth and a pointed snout. It was simple, Gachiakuta said, to give shape to a vital instrument. The most important thing was the idea of how it would be used. What was needed was imagination. And among all givers, Rudo's ability was the one that fully brought out that power. All he had done was give him an idea. He had spoken to Rudo through the choker and told him that instead of using himself, why not use his hat instead? Gachiakuta then remembered when he and Lily were still children, together in a room watching television. Because of the show they were watching, he had started thinking about what everyone wanted to see. In that show, it was the protagonist's transformation. He also remembered too Lily and her transformation. That was why Gachiakuta mentioned that what everyone wanted was a transformation item. When Maimo realized this, he simply laughed and said crap. He understood now. Because Rudo had used his power only on the hat, he had managed to preserve Rudo's humanity. It was not like what he himself had done. That way, even if Rudo shut off his power, only the hat would disappear. He himself had given Rudo power without forcing him to gamble his life. He asked whether Rudo really thought that would be enough to defeat him, after all the effort he had put into becoming what he was now. Maimo raged, saying it was impossible. All the suffering and vile acts he had piled up to become a god and place himself at the very top of this world could never be matched by a mere inexperienced child. However, Gachiakuta said that he was mistaken. Maimo insisted that Rudo had indeed transformed, but that anyone could do that. They were both equally polluted by the power of the gods, so there was nothing special about it. But Gachiakuta replied that he was wrong. Even if there was certainty that everything would turn out fine, there was not a single living person who did not fear the idea of changing their own form into something else. That was why, even for himself, he wanted to wait until the very last moment before transforming. And they would never have been able to do all of this without Rudo's firm resolve. As Rudo stared at him, Maimo began to wonder why Rudo felt so intimidating. All he had done was change his form. Rudo, meanwhile, thought that he was right. That was the only conclusion he had reached. His metamorphosis had been born from the fusion of his power with the Watchmen series. That, he said, was the greatest masterpiece. Maimo was now in the realm of the gods. No ordinary giver could ever reach this. Only someone devoid of all emotion could achieve it. It was a monumental feat that only he was capable of accomplishing. So why did it feel as though he was the one who was the inferior being? Rudo said that Maimo did not understand. He did not understand Gauntis's power. He did not know why he was able to open the doors to other people's hearts and form a connection with the soul, just like what he had done before, when he first managed to reach Lily back when they were still children. Rudo insisted that he did not simply give orders to others. He gave sincere words that came from genuine care. That power, he said, was always kind and gentle. Maimo could not believe that words born from compassion could grant power to others. Gauntis merely closed his eyes as Rudo said that if Maimo still did not understand, then he would prove it to him. Gauntis had given him more than just an idea. Through the choker that connected them, it was as if Gauntis had given him the courage to tell him that if there was anyone who could defeat Maimo, it would be him. From where he stood, Rudo suddenly shot upward at tremendous speed, targeting and striking Maimo. As a result, the side of his head was bit and cut apart. Rudo said that Gauntis's heartfelt words became energy that was sent directly to the soul of the one they were meant for. It was not just a metaphor or a placebo. It was something that truly happened. It was the truth. Though it might resemble Maimo's ability to control people through words, it was not the same. This was the power to give someone strength through words filled with compassion. And because of that, Rudo was able to face Maimo. Gauntis's hidden power, the power that even he himself did not know he possessed, had now been proven. The scene shifted outside, showing chunks of rock blocking the staircase leading upward. The people there were shocked, realizing they had narrowly avoided being caught in it. The companion agreed. Several houses had been hit, but the field hospital appeared to be fine. They needed to hurry and get the extension cord for his sibling. Right, August replied. They stopped and thought for a moment. They were still quite far away. August asked whether they really needed to go back up to the festival, since there should be extension cords available elsewhere. Wing answered that the ones they used for the Doll Fest were extremely impressive, with wattage that was more than sufficient. August, who was gripping the railing, called him staffer, saying there was nothing he would not give for a more convincing Doll Fest staffer. August then thought for a moment and suddenly asked what had happened to the other Doll Fest staff. He said he had not seen a single one of them in a minute. As Wing climbed up, she replied that she thought they were still backstage. She had not seen them either. Curious, August asked what she was doing there, and Wing answered that she was just slacking off. August couldn't believe it. A short while later, they reached staff entrance 3. Wing searched for the key to open it. However, August suddenly realized that if those people had not yet evacuated, then that meant the Doll Fest staff were probably still wearing their chokers. He grew worried about what might happen. Even so, Wing opened the door without much thought. When it opened, they were greeted by the sight of unconscious Doll Fest staff lying in the hallway. August was puzzled when he noticed them. They were sprawled on the floor, and it was clear that the chokers they had been wearing were already broken. Returning to the battle with Rudo, Maimo, whose horn has been cut, declared that he could not be shaken. He is invincible. However, Rudo possessed the power to destroy him. Now, Maimo said that what he wanted was a piece of the Watchmen series. At that moment, he noticed Amo peeking in from the side. She caught Maimo's attention, and Rudo was surprised when Maimo suddenly changed direction. It turned out he was heading straight for Amo. Maimo insisted that if she was not using her Watchmen series, then she should just give it to him and let him use it instead. He dove down at tremendous speed to reach her, causing an explosion at the point of impact. However, someone intervened and grabbed Amo, carrying her away from where she stood. Maimo had not expected that. It was he, now in control of Fu's body, who said that he had received an order that made him stronger. He insisted that he would give his heart and soul to protect Amo, holding her firmly in his arms. Maimo recognized Fu, then realized that it was he. As he leapt away again and again while carrying Amo, Maimo could not believe he had shown up there. Still, Maimo realized that he could simply order him to come to his side. He opened his left hand to use his microphone vital instrument to do so, but then remembered that he had already crushed it earlier. He cursed in frustration at his own mistake. At that exact moment, Rudo appeared right in front of him. Mimo questioned why every single one of them kept blocking his path. Suddenly, the wall of the area shattered as Rudo launched his attack. They burst through it as Rudo kicked Mimo with all his strength. Mimo felt the sharp claws of Rudo's wolf form dig into his body. He had no choice but to protect himself with his arms. Rudo declared that Mimo had destroyed his own vital instrument, his own treasure. He remembered what August had mentioned, that he had made that costume for the doll festival when he was only 13 years old. However, it had been destroyed by a bully. Because of that, the lower jaw of that wolf hat was gone forever. Because of this, Rudo opened his mouth and declared that he would not allow him to touch anything else and destroy them. Mimo was completely shocked when Rudo suddenly bit him. Without any difficulty, Rudo tore off Mimo's left arm with his sharp teeth as they fell through the air together. At that point, Mimo could do nothing. Someone suddenly asked whether Rudo was really human. The enormous crater he had created when he kicked Mimo was clearly visible. The ones talking were the Adoroi twins. One of them questioned why the other was doubting Rudo's humanity, and the answer was that he was practically grinding the floor with that monster. They merely observed and admitted that even though they fought trash beasts, they still would not want to interfere in that battle. Any human that isn't them would surely die if they did. Rio grew uneasy when she noticed that Felix and Gil were no longer there. They could be seen walking together down a hallway. Gil complained and said that she just wanted to run away. In her view, they were not going to get paid anymore. On top of that, for some unknown reason, all the staff there were already unconscious. Felix, however, was crying yet resolute. Had Gil forgotten that their Lord Mimo had prepared insurance? If he were to lose the battle, their duty was to destroy the entire venue. Mimo had planted bombs in various locations, programmed to detonate once the electricity was cut. He had even boasted that those bombs were built by the same person who created Gaunus's artificial heart. Felix was determined to blow up the building's electrical room and trigger a chain reaction. Gil, however, worried that they would get caught in the blast as well. But Felix said that was the price they paid for being weak and powerless. For his Lord Mimo, he would fulfill his duty. Returning to August's side, he grew alarmed when he noticed that all of the staff appeared to be dead. Wing immediately walked straight in and said that they were not dead, just unconscious. She told him to look carefully. The only thing that had been destroyed were their chokers. August insisted that that very human touch was what made him even more uneasy. Whoever had done that to them, she said, seemed to have fled toward the electrical room. August became even more frightened because that meant someone had deliberately done this to them. Wing, however, was determined to catch that crook. But August pointed out that he thought they were only there to look for an extension cord. He said that Wing had turned him into the straight man, and that she was seriously scary. Just then, a sound could be heard nearby, so Wing peeked in that direction. She froze when she saw a fellow staff member holding weapons, while the unconscious bodies of Gil and Felix lay on the floor. They had not expected to see that scene. Wing, however, looked delighted when she recognized who it was. She was the one who had done it to the staff. August was confused and asked what she was talking about. Wing then realized that because she was not wearing a choker, she had not been ruled by Mimo. As the staff sheathed her sword, Wing said that she was glad she was on their side. The person she was speaking to was their daily hire, Hyo. August's eyes widened when he caught sight of Hyo standing there. She was standing firmly in place, gripping her weapon. Wing approached her and called her a lifesaver, saying that if she had not been there, they surely would have been killed by those staff puppets. August stood frozen behind them, stunned. Wing grew curious and asked what the people lying on the floor had been doing. Hyo paused for a moment before explaining that the staff there had attacked her. After she dealt with them, she had sat down on the couch to rest. However, she then noticed Felix running and heard that they were planning to blow up the building's electrical room to cause a chain reaction. Because she overheard that plan, she said she neutralized them. Wing was extremely impressed. She remarked that she had switched into security guard mode, even without being ordered. Hyo replied that her instruction had been to defend the venue. Because of that, she realized she was simply doing exactly what she had been told. Wing suddenly grew alarmed when she processed what she had said about an explosion. Hyo explained that there were bombs planted throughout the entire city, and that they would detonate once the electrical room was destroyed. Wing panicked and said they needed to find those bombs immediately. But Hyo reassured her and said she had already taken care of that. Wing could hardly believe it, but she insisted that everything was fine. She had found the bombs before the doll fest even began. Because of that, she had already handled them and gathered the others while she was at it. Wing was shocked, realizing that it had not been just one bomb. And that was correct. Hyo insisted that she had scoured the entire town to locate them. Still, she thought they should call in a specialist just in case. For now, they should restrain the two people there and hand them over to the Hellguard. Wing found her incredibly badass. While everyone else was distracted by Mimo, she had casually saved the entire town from disaster. She knew she had chosen the right person. She let out a wow and said that whoever had hired her as security clearly knew exactly what they were doing. Hyo replied that it had been her herself. Wing then realized that made perfect sense. August suddenly cut into their conversation. Wing turned toward him, realizing she had almost forgotten why they were there in the first place. They were supposed to be looking for an extension cord. Hyo looked confused when August suddenly walked up to her and said that she was smoking hot. He just stared at her, while the girls looked equally baffled by the statement. August praised her bone structure, posture, bearing, and overall vibe. He said she was perfect in every aspect. Because of that, he asked if she would like to be his model. Wing initially thought he was trying to hit on her. August added that maybe she could even be a live-in model. Wing pointed out that he was skipping several steps. Hyo suddenly asked where the location was, and Wing did not expect her to sound interested. August replied that it was with the cleaners. Hyo paused when she heard that. August then suddenly remembered that he still needed to help his sister, so he suggested that they could simply swap blood for the chokers. As he was about to do that, Wing reminded him that the chokers could no longer be used anyway. Wing then suggested that they should just ask Hyo to come with them while they helped his sibling. After all, they did not know what might happen on the way back, and she could serve as their bodyguard. August was delighted and said it was a great idea. Wing said she would show him where the extension cords were, and August replied that it was exactly what he had been hoping for all along. Meanwhile, Hyo remained quiet, deep in thought because of what she heard about them being the cleaners. Down below, Goka could be seen passing by Aishia. She looked at him while he was carrying Zanka. Returning to Mimo, his arm had already been sent flying after being bitten off by Rudo. Rudo did not let up and pushed him. He continued to drive him back, while Mimo could no longer fight back against him. From inside the festival venue, they were flung outside and slid across a distant area. Mimo's body was even dragged along the ground after they landed. As this was happening, Mimo was talking to himself. He said they should organize their thoughts first. He looked like a teacher standing in front of a blackboard. He pointed at a drawing of Rudo and asked who that was. His student was his own beyond human form, which answered that it was Rudo Surbrek. He then asked what he thought gave Rudo that kind of form. Perhaps it was similar to Zodal the Raider or Gita the Cleaner. He answered himself that it was not. Those two only wore their vital instruments, whereas Rudo had altered the structure of his body. But Rudo's form did not work the same way as Mimo's. When he asked himself why, the answer was that his own form was only possible because of the power of his authority. Basically, Rudo had only given power to his hood and was using that hood as a transformation item. Mimo thought about how to explain Rudo's strength. If they could not find a way, they would surely be destroyed by him. Transformation was an abstract phenomenon, and it was impossible to measure its power through speculation alone. On top of that, Rudo had more combat experience than they did. And beyond that, he had already taken their arm. Beyond Human Mimo grew uneasy because he did not want to lose. He wanted to reach even greater heights than anyone else. Still, he calmed himself. He would climb to the summit of the world. He thought about how they had been looked down on before. But once he became a god, he would surely rise above and become number one. They simply had not expected that snot-nosed brat to stand in the way of their plan. However, if they could get past the wall Rudo had placed in front of them, the path would become easy. His beyond human form grew curious about that. Mimo realized that yes, it was because he knew something. He knew where the other Watchmen series were located. He laughed, delighted by that realization. Mimo declared that they would kill Rudo and collect the Watchmen series. Perhaps the Watchmen series would be what finally could make him a true god. And to kill Rudo, they needed to give themselves an opening. To create that opening, they would use his specialty, and that was none other than words. As Rudo snarled at him, he suddenly asked him if he wanted him to tell who had killed Regdo. In the next scene, Tamsi's eyes were shown. He wore unusual attire and was walking out from what looked like an enormous mansion or palace. Returning to the battle with Mimo, because of what he had mentioned about Regdo, Rudo gained an opening to counterattack. With a shove and a shockwave blast, he sent Rudo flying upward. Rudo vomited blood from the impact, and Gauntis had not expected the extent of the damage he took. Mimo was pleased that he had been right. It seemed that, deep down, Rudo was in fact still somewhat immature. The fact that he reacted to the mention of who killed Regdo meant that above all else, he wanted to know the truth. No matter how strong or powerful an opponent might be, if the heart was shaken enough to create an opening, its rhythm would be disrupted. That was why Rudo had been distracted and sent flying. And so, Mimo wondered how many more upsets it would take before Rudo finally died. Rudo could be seen already on the ground, and once again, Mimo rushed in and attacked him. He raised his hand and released a shockwave that struck directly at Rudo's position. He said that if Rudo was thinking about it, Gauntis knew nothing at all about that matter. If he did not know whether a piece of information would be useful, he preferred to keep it to himself and contemplate it. That was why he was ordering him to forget it. He added that the opponent Rudo looked down on possessed knowledge that he himself also wanted to know. For example, the one who killed Regdo belonged to the cleaners. Mimo charged at him again, while Rudo froze, having not expected that information. Mimo raised his hand to strike. He said that disclosing information could be wielded and swung like a sword. And because Rudo was stunned by the truth, he could no longer move from where he stood and simply took the oncoming attack. However, someone stopped Mimo's hand. That someone was none other than Gauntis. He stepped in between the two of them. At that moment, Gauntis realized that Mimo had been erasing intel from his mind using his orders. Gauntis spoke to Rudo through the choker and said that if this was true, then Mimo might be holding information far more significant than he was. And that alone was enough to disrupt his mind. He told him to look at it's done to him. It was showing how much he valued Regdo, and likewise how much he valued the cleaners. Mimo was attacking him by revealing information, while keeping himself safe by holding on to the answer. Because of that, Gauntis suggested that they neutralize Mimo and force the answer out of him. He said there were many ways to make him talk. There were even givers on the ground who specialized in extracting information. However, Rudo said that he did not know if he could still hold himself back now. He did not know if he could neutralize him without killing him. In response, Gauntis said that it was not a problem. He said that he possessed an invincible body. Those were his own words. That was why there was no reason for Rudo to hold back. He only needed to strike him with all of his doubt, all of his angst, everything he had. Gauntis admitted that there had been a time when he failed to protect the people he loved. Mimo had killed his beloved grandfather and grandmother. But this time, he said, he would not fail again. Once more, Rudo bit down on Mimo's other arm with his sharp teeth. Gauntis insisted that if Mimo was using his words as a sword, then he would also use his words as a shield. Rudo and Gauntis worked together to bring him down. Mimo could not believe it when he realized that his arm had been severed again. He said that he still had many more swords where that come from. He would rain them down in a massive flood that Gauntis' little pep talk could never stop. Enraged, he threatened that afterward, he would kill him and rule the entire ground himself. Mimo's beyond human form charged forward once again, but Rudo answered that he had just gained yet another reason to beat him until he was completely broken. He wanted him to spill everything he knew. That was why he would do everything he could to crush him and squeeze the life out of him. He warned that it was all over, and then he lunged forward. Because of what was happening in the area, a warning alarm sounded through the speakers for the residents of that town. A child called out to his grandfather to tell him that they were being ordered to evacuate and that they needed to hurry and leave the town. The grandfather, who was sitting on the bed, replied that it was still too early to eat dinner. However, the child insisted that they really had to go. The grandfather complained that the 5 o'clock radio announcement had not even played yet. The grandchild came closer and told him to ignore that and hurry up. Just then, a few minutes passed, and the radio announced that it was already 5 o'clock. It was a good thing the grandfather and grandchild were already standing and about to leave, because massive chunks of rock suddenly came flying into their house. The child guided his grandfather, who could no longer see, toward a safe place. Meanwhile, It could be seen that Mimo and Rudo had been sent flying toward the wall of their house. When Rudo kicked him, Mimo slammed into that wall. The clash between the two continued without pause. As the grandfather walked, he even commented that the announcement that day sounded lively. The two of them kept running as the grandfather was led along, while Mimo and Rudo continued exchanging attacks. Mimo insisted that if Rudo kept fighting him, it would only bring even more damage to the area. When the grandfather heard the voice, he asked whether Mimo was a guest on the program that day. What he did not know was that Mimo was already right behind him, battling Rudo inside their house. As they stepped outside the door, the grandfather admitted that he did not like Mimo at all. He was far too noisy, and his ears hurt every time he listened to him. As they went down the stairs, the severe damage caused by the two of them could be seen clearly. The grandfather added that Mimo was hurting his ears even now, and above them, Rudo and Mimo continued fighting and clashing violently.